Hello, I'm Arthur Reed. Welcome to the World War II History Channel, where we explore the pivotal moments and untold stories of the greatest generation. The wind does not remember the names of the fallen, but it remembers the weight of their gentle, tired breath. Listen to the wind tonight. It sweeps across the vast, endless ocean of the steppe. It is a wide, open world here, a landscape of silver grass rolling under the heavy light of a pale, watching moon. The earth breathes slowly. In and out. A rhythmic, ancient slumber. Far away from the maps with their harsh red and blue lines, far away from the grand speeches in great halls, there is only this quiet dark. There is only the chill of the night air, the rustle of the tall weeds, and the young men who have been asked to carry the weight of the world on their narrow, trembling shoulders. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel the cold night air settling over the fields. The heat of the day has long since burned away, leaving a crisp, biting stillness. The stars above are scattered like silver dust on black velvet, indifferent to the troubles of the earth below. They just shine, softly, peacefully. Hidden within the deep shadows of a small grove of birch trees, wrapped in the quiet embrace of the night, sits a boy named Pavel. He is so young. His face is smeared with the dark grease of an engine and the soft, dusty earth of his homeland. He is huddled against the cold, unyielding iron tracks of his machine. There are 50 of these great, sleeping beasts scattered across the gentle hills tonight, 50 heavy metal hearts resting before the dawn. But Pavel is not thinking of the metal. He is not thinking of the morning. He is holding a piece of paper. It is a letter, folded and unfolded so many times that the creases have grown soft, like old cloth. The edges are frayed. He cannot read the words in the dark, but he does not need to. He knows every loop of the ink by heart. He traces the paper with a bruised thumb, feeling the faint indentations of his mother's pen. He remembers the words as a quiet whisper in his mind. She writes about the old apple tree in their courtyard back home. She tells him that the blossoms were heavy this spring, drifting down like sweet-smelling snow onto the cobblestones. She says the house is quiet without him. She says the neighbor's cat had kittens, and she saved the gray one for him to name when he returns. Pavel closes his eyes, leaning his head back against the cold steel. For a fleeting, precious moment, he is not on the frozen steppe. He is sitting on the porch of his childhood home. He can smell the sweet, sugary scent of baking bread escaping from the kitchen window. He can hear the gentle, familiar creak of the wooden floorboards beneath his father's heavy boots. He can feel the soft, warm summer breeze on his face. It is a beautiful, quiet dream, a tiny sanctuary he builds in the middle of a vast, uncertain world. A shadow moves beside him. It is Kolya. Kolya is older, a man whose hands are rough and scarred from years of mending broken things, a man whose eyes carry a deep, quiet sorrow, but also an endless well of gentle kindness. He sits down beside Pavel, moving slowly, carefully, not wanting to disturb the silence. In his hands, he holds a rusted, dented tin cup. A thin wisp of steam rises from the dark liquid inside. He offers the cup to Pavel without a word. Just a soft nod. Pavel takes it, wrapping his freezing fingers around the warm tin. The heat seeps into his palms, a small, profound comfort in the middle of the biting cold. It is only weak, watery tea, tasting faintly of smoke and earth, but to Pavel, it is everything. It is a reminder that he is not alone. It is a reminder that warmth still exists in the world. They sit together in the dark, sipping the warm water, listening to the soft, rhythmic breathing of the other men sleeping on the ground nearby, wrapped tightly in their thin woolen blankets. Sometimes, a boy will murmur in his sleep, calling out a name, caught in a dream of a world far away. Kolya will reach out and gently pat the boy's shoulder until the breathing slows, until the dream softens into quiet rest again. There is no bravery here tonight, no grand heroism. There is only endurance. There is only the quiet, desperate hope to see another sunset, to smell the apple blossoms one more time. And history is made of these quiet hopes. History is not just the dates and the grand movements of steel. It is made of the silent tears wept into rough wool blankets. It is made of the faded ink on a crumpled letter. It is made of the hidden, unseen moments that the world passes by without noticing. There are so many secret layers to the past, so many shadows that moved the world while no one was looking, gentle operations of the heart and hidden operations of the mind. If you find a quiet comfort in uncovering these hidden corners of the past and shining a soft light into the shadows of history, I want to gently invite you to join our little community. Through our email newsletter, we share the unseen stories of the past, the quiet truths that the textbooks often leave behind. And as a warm welcome to our quiet corner of the world, I have a special gift for you, a free ebook titled The Shadow War, 5 Top Secret Operations That Shaped World War II. It is a collection of untold stories, of silent courage and hidden paths, very much like the stories we are exploring together tonight. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. I just want to make sure you receive these stories safely. Now, let us return to the steppe. Let us follow the wind as it leaves the birch grove, as it brushes past the 50 sleeping machines, and travels across the great, empty expanse of silver grass. Miles away, hidden in a shallow dip in the earth, sits another shadow. A single, solitary shadow. It is massive, a lonely fortress of thick steel sitting heavy upon the bruised earth. Inside this single machine, the air is thick and still. It smells of old engine oil, of leather, and of confined, anxious breath. The iron walls feel like they are pressing inward, a suffocating embrace in the middle of a wide-open landscape. Sitting in the dim, cramped belly of the beast is Johannes. He is tired. A bone-deep, heavy exhaustion that sleep can no longer cure. The harsh lines of his face are softened by the faint, amber glow of a single, shielded dial. He is not a monster lurking in the dark. He is a schoolteacher. Or, at least, he used to be, a lifetime ago, in a small town nestled in the green, rolling valleys of Bavaria. He used to spend his days listening to the bright, chaotic laughter of children, helping them trace the letters of the alphabet on small slate boards. Now, his hands are calloused and stained, resting heavily on his knees. In his palm, illuminated by a sliver of moonlight slipping through a narrow vision slit, rests a small, sepia-toned photograph. It is a picture of his wife, Clara, and their little girl, Elise. Elise is wearing a white dress with a ribbon in her hair, squinting brightly into the sun. Johannes traces the outline of his daughter's cheek with a gentle, hesitant finger. He tries to remember the exact pitch of her laugh. He tries to remember how it felt to hold her tiny, warm hand as they walked down the cobbled street to the bakery on Sunday mornings. The memory feels slippery, like sand falling through his fingers. He misses the sky. He misses the feeling of walking without a destination, of breathing air that does not taste of fumes and fear. He leans his head against the cold, damp steel of his enclosure, closing his eyes. A profound, aching loneliness washes over him, as vast and empty as the steppe outside. He is just one man, in one machine, floating in an ocean of dark grass, completely unmoored from the life he once knew. He listens to the silence of his crew. The young radio operator, barely out of his teens, is sleeping with his head resting awkwardly against his equipment, a soft, rhythmic snore escaping his parted lips. The commander is sitting above, still and silent, staring out into the blackness, carrying the heavy burden of their lives in his mind. They are a family forged not by blood, but by circumstance, bound together in this tiny, metal room, utterly dependent on one another for their next breath. Johannes whispers a quiet prayer into the dark. He does not pray for glory. He does not pray for victory. He prays simply for the sun to rise, and for the chance to see it set again. He prays that the little girl in the white dress is sleeping soundly, safe in her warm bed, far, far away from the shadows of this world. Outside, the wind continues its long, mournful journey. It rustles the dry leaves of the birch trees where Pavel sleeps. It sweeps over the cold iron where Johannes sits awake. It weaves them together in the dark, two men sitting under the exact same canopy of stars, breathing the exact same cold air, dreaming the exact same dreams of home and peace. They are so far apart, separated by miles of dark grass and an invisible line drawn by men they will never meet, yet they are perfectly, beautifully mirrored in their quiet suffering and their gentle hopes. The night begins to deepen. The profound, heavy stillness before the dawn settles over the earth. It is a hushed, breathless moment. The animals of the steppe are asleep in their burrows. The birds are silent in the branches. Even the rustle of the grass seems to quiet down, as if the earth itself is holding its breath. Slowly, imperceptibly, the velvet black of the eastern horizon begins to bruise with the softest, palest shade of gray. It is not yet light, only the promise of light, a faint, ghostly illumination that begins to sketch the shapes of the hills against the sky. The air grows even colder, the sharp, biting frost of the early morning settling over the land. A thick, silvery mist begins to rise from the damp earth, rolling lazily across the fields, cloaking the sleeping machines in a soft, ethereal veil. In the birch grove, Kolya stirs. He slowly opens his eyes, feeling the stiff ache in his joints. He pulls his thin blanket a little tighter around his shoulders and looks up at the fading stars. He reaches over and gently shakes Pavel's shoulder. Pavel wakes with a soft gasp, his hand instinctively flying to his chest, making sure the letter is still safely tucked inside his coat. He blinks away the remnants of his warm dream, the scent of apple blossoms fading into the sharp, metallic smell of the morning mist. In the single, lonely machine across the steppe, Johannes carefully tucks the photograph back into his breast pocket, placing it securely over his heart. He takes a long, slow breath, steadying his trembling hands. The amber light of the dial seems to fade as the gray dawn creeps through the narrow slits of his steel prison. They do not know what the day will bring. They do not know the history that will be written upon this field. They only know that the night is ending. The sun will soon crest the horizon, washing the steppe in a pale, golden light. For now, in these final, precious moments of the dawn, there is no war. There is only the mist, the cold, and the quiet, beating hearts of young men waiting for the sun. The earth slumbers on, holding them all in its vast, indifferent embrace. Let them rest a little longer in the quiet shadows. Let the gentle wind sing them one final lullaby before the waking of the world. Even in the shadow of great iron beasts, the morning dust dances like crushed stars in the light. The dawn has finally broken across the endless, rolling ocean of the steppe. The pale gray of the early morning has slowly, gently warmed into a soft, golden hue, pouring over the horizon like honey spilling across a vast, wooden table. The thick, silvery mist that clung to the damp earth through the long, freezing night is beginning to burn away, lifting in delicate, wispy threads toward the waking sky. It is a beautiful, quiet morning. The kind of morning where, in another life, a man might step out onto his porch, cup a steaming mug of tea in his warm hands, and simply listen to the birds sing their greeting to the sun. But here, on this wide and lonely expanse of earth, the birds are quiet. There is only the soft, rhythmic sigh of the wind as it brushes through the tall, silver-green grass, whispering ancient secrets to the soil. As the sun climbs higher, warming the frozen iron of the silent machine scattered across the hills, the dew begins to evaporate, leaving behind a fine, powdery dust. This dust is the breath of the steppe. It coats everything. It settles on the broad, sloping shoulders of the resting machines, softening their harsh, terrifying lines until they look like natural outcroppings of the earth itself, ancient stones sleeping in the sun. In the gentle warmth of this new day, sitting on the dusty earth just beside the great metal tracks of his machine, Pavel has found a moment of profound, untouchable peace. The engine is quiet. The world is perfectly still. He leans his back against the road wheel, letting the metal, now faintly warmed by the morning rays, seep into his tired, aching muscles. He has a tiny, worn stub of a pencil in his right hand. The wood is chewed at the end, the lead dull and blunt from use. In his left hand, resting carefully on his knee, is a torn, uneven piece of brown paper. It looks as though it might have once wrapped a ration of dry bread or a block of coarse soap, but now, it is the most precious thing in his possession. It is a blank canvas for his heart. Pavel licks the dry tip of the pencil lead, tasting the familiar, metallic tang of graphite and dust, and slowly begins to write. He does not write about the heavy, suffocating fear of the night before. He does not write about the vast numbers of men gathered on this plain, or the terrible, roaring thunder they all know is waiting just beyond the horizon. Instead, he writes about the dust. He writes to his younger sister, a little girl with bright, laughing eyes and braids that never seem to stay tied. He traces the letters carefully, his handwriting clumsy and thick, forming the words with a slow, deliberate tenderness. He tells her that the light here in the morning is almost the same color as the stray dog they used to feed behind the bakery. He tells her that he saw a tiny, yellow butterfly land on the long, steel barrel of his machine, and how for a minute, the whole world seemed to hold its breath just to watch its delicate wings slowly open and close. He writes that he is eating well, a gentle lie to soothe the child's worry, and that he is wearing the extra pair of thick woolen socks she knitted for him. The paper is rough, and the pencil catches on small fibers, leaving darker smudges of gray lead, but every stroke is an act of deep, enduring love. It is a quiet rebellion against the harshness of his reality, a desperate, beautiful attempt to anchor himself to the gentle world he left behind. Miles away, across the softly waving grass, the air inside the solitary, massive machine is stifling, already growing thick and warm as the sun beats down on the thick iron roof. Johannes has pushed the heavy top hatch open just a few inches, allowing a single, brilliant shaft of morning sunlight to pierce the gloom of his confined, metallic world. He sits directly beneath this beam of light, watching the dust motes drift and swirl in the golden air. They look like tiny, floating embers, rising and falling in a slow, silent dance. He reaches into the breast pocket of his tunic, his fingers brushing against the coarse fabric, and draws out a small, folded bundle of letters. They are tied together with a thin, frayed piece of string. He slips the string off, laying it carefully on his knee, and selects one letter from the middle of the stack. He has read this letter so many times that he no longer needs to look at the words. He knows the shape of the paragraphs, the exact place where his wife's pen pressed a little too hard into the paper, the small, faded water spot in the corner where a raindrop, or perhaps a tear, had fallen so many months ago. He unfolds the paper. It is thin, almost translucent in the bright shaft of sunlight, fragile as a dried leaf. As he opens it, a tiny puff of dust, trapped in the creases for weeks, escapes and joins the dancing motes in the air. Johannes breathes in, closing his eyes, trying to catch the phantom scent of her soap, or the smell of their small home, but there is only the smell of warm oil, old leather, and the dusty breath of the steppe. Clara's handwriting is elegant and sweeping, completely out of place in this cramped, brutal cage of iron. She writes about the garden. She tells him that the climbing roses have finally overtaken the wooden trellis by the back gate, blooming in thick, fragrant clusters of deep crimson. She writes that she spends the warm evenings sitting on the bench beneath them, listening to the crickets, waiting for him to walk down the gravel path. Johannes traces the looping tail of a letter G with his rough, calloused thumb. In this quiet, dusty light, he feels an overwhelming wave of gentle sorrow, a sweet, aching longing that makes his chest feel tight. He does not want to be a man of steel. He does not want to be a shadow on the steppe. He just wants to be the man walking down that gravel path. He wants to smell the roses. He looks at the sleeping faces of his young crew members, their features softened by the dim light and the quiet peace of the morning. They are all just boys, dreaming of gardens, of front porches, of letters written in the dust. There is a profound, breathtaking beauty in these fragile pieces of paper. Out here, where the world feels so impossibly large and indifferent, where the earth stretches on forever without caring about the men who walk upon it, these letters are everything. They are small, paper vessels carrying the very essence of human souls. They are proof that even in the deepest shadows, even surrounded by cold iron and the terrible weight of waiting, the human heart seeks out the light. The heart seeks out connection, warmth, and the gentle, comforting memory of love. It is so important to remember these quiet moments. The grand, sweeping narratives of history often forget the dust. They forget the smudged pencil lead, the chewed wood, the faded ink, and the tear-stained paper. They overlook the quiet courage it takes for a frightened young man to sit in the dirt and write a gentle, reassuring lie to his little sister. We tell these stories because they matter. They are the true fabric of our past, woven from millions of ordinary, beautiful lives trying to hold onto their humanity in the face of the unimaginable. If you find comfort in these quiet, whispered stories, if you feel a connection to the gentle preservation of these forgotten moments, I want to warmly invite you to become a part of our journey. Keeping these fragile narratives alive, gently brushing the dust from these hidden letters, takes time and tender care. If you would like to offer a small token of support to help us continue this work, we have a Ko-Fi tip jar. It is simply a way to buy us a warm cup of coffee, a small, friendly gesture that means the absolute world to us, and helps ensure these quiet voices are never lost to the wind. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. Your support is a beautiful kindness, a modern letter of encouragement sent through the vastness of our own time. Now, let us return to the light of the steppe. The morning stretches on, lazy and slow. The sun is fully above the horizon now, a bright, pale eye watching over the fields. The mist is entirely gone, leaving the world crisp and clear. Pavel finishes his letter. He signs his name at the very bottom, right at the ragged edge of the brown paper, adding a small, clumsy drawing of a smiling sun for his sister. He folds the paper carefully, once, twice, making it as small as possible, and tucks it deep into the inner pocket of his heavy coat, right against his chest. He pats the pocket once, feeling the reassuring bulk of the paper over his beating heart. Beside him, Kolya is awake, silently watching the horizon. Kolya offers Pavel a small piece of hard, dry biscuit. Pavel takes it with a grateful smile, breaking it in half and offering a piece to the younger boy sleeping on the other side of the tracks. This is how they survive the waiting. Not with grand speeches, but with shared crumbs of bread and the quiet comfort of presence. In his solitary fortress, Johannes carefully refolds his wife's letter. He aligns the worn creases perfectly, treating the fragile paper as if it were spun glass. He ties the frayed string back around the bundle and slips it back into his pocket. He reaches out and gently rests his hand on the shoulder of his young radio operator, who is just beginning to stir, blinking sleepily into the shaft of golden light. Johannes gives the boy's shoulder a soft, reassuring squeeze. No words are spoken. None are needed. The gentle pressure of his hand says everything. I am here. You are not alone. We will face the day together. The wind sweeps across the steppe again, a long, continuous breath that ripples the silver grass like waves on a pale, dry sea. It picks up the dust from the earth, carrying it through the air in a fine, shimmering mist. The wind does not care about the lines drawn on maps. It blows freely over Pavel, rustling his collar and carrying the scent of dry earth. It blows freely through the open hatch of Johannes's machine, swirling the dust motes in the shaft of light. For this one, perfect, suspended moment in time, the two men, separated by miles of grass and an invisible chasm of conflict, are united by the exact same dust. They breathe the same morning air. They feel the exact same warmth of the sun on their tired faces. They carry the exact same weight of love in their pockets, folded into tiny, fragile squares of paper. The morning deepens. The waiting continues. The heavy iron machines remain asleep, anchored to the soil. But inside the hearts of the men who tend them, there is a quiet, resilient life. A life sustained by the memory of a yellow butterfly, the smell of blooming roses, and the simple, profound hope of returning home. Let the dust settle over them. Let the morning stretch out its warm, golden arms. Let them rest in the gentle silence of the steppe, accompanied only by the soft, whispered lullaby of the wind, and the unspoken poetry of their letters in the dust. Even the heaviest iron cannot hold back the soft, inevitable turning of the world. The sun has climbed high above the endless expanse of the steppe, and the pale, golden light of the morning has slowly deepened into a rich, heavy amber. The mist is a distant memory, replaced by a warm, dry breeze that weaves through the silver grass like a gentle hand brushing through unkempt hair. But as the day stretches out, the nature of the world begins to change. The earth, which had been so cold and still, is now awake. And the great, sleeping beasts of metal that rest upon it are beginning to wake as well. You can feel it before you can hear it. It begins as a faint, distant trembling in the soil, a low, rhythmic vibration that travels through the roots of the birch trees and the stems of the dry weeds. It is the deep, mechanical heartbeat of the machines. The engines are turning over, one by one, across the rolling hills. It is not a violent sound, not yet. It is simply a heavy, resonant hum, a profound, collective sigh of steel and oil stirring from its slumber. Inside the single, solitary machine, sitting deep within his secluded valley of grass, Johannes feels this vibration deep in his bones. The thick armor plates that surround him, which had been so bitterly cold in the dark of night, are now drawing in the heat of the midday sun. The steel is no longer an icy prison, it has become a warm, heavy blanket, pressing in from all sides. Johannes reaches out and places his bare palm flat against the interior wall of his enclosure. The metal is rough, textured with the tiny, imperfect scars of its forging, but it pulses with a steady, thrumming life. He closes his eyes and leans into that warmth. For a fleeting, quiet moment, he lets his mind drift away from the vast, empty steppe. He imagines that the deep rumble of the engine is not the sound of war, but the familiar, comforting hum of the old mill by the river in his hometown. He remembers standing by the water's edge as a young boy, feeling the wooden floorboards of the mill tremble beneath his feet as the great water wheel turned, endlessly grinding the wheat into soft, pale flour. He remembers the air smelling of fresh grain and damp earth, a smell of life and sustenance. He tries to hold onto that memory, to wrap it tightly around his heart, shielding it from the reality of the iron room he now inhabits. He looks at the young men sitting around him in the dim, amber-tinted gloom. They are so incredibly young. The radio operator, the boy who had been sleeping so peacefully just a few hours ago, is now awake, his eyes wide and bright in the shadows. He is adjusting the dials on his panel with slow, deliberate movements, but his hands are trembling, just a little. Johannes sees it. He does not say a word, but he gently shifts his position, moving just a fraction closer to the boy, offering the silent, anchoring presence of his own body. He wants to take the fear from this boy's shoulders and carry it himself. That is the true weight he bears today. It is not the 50 tons of steel that surrounds him. It is the fragile, beating hearts of the children entrusted to his care. Miles away, across the sea of grass, the air is filled with the same low, resonant hum. 50 machines, sitting shoulder to shoulder on the gentle slopes, are breathing together in the warm afternoon air. The green paint of their sloped armor is beginning to blister slightly under the sun, smelling sharply of heated enamel and exhaust. Pavel is sitting inside his own machine now, the heavy top hatch still open to let in the breeze. The letter to his sister is tucked safely against his chest, a small, fragile shield against the immense weight of the day. The interior of his machine is stark and unyielding, a confined space of sharp angles and hard edges. There is no comfort here, only purpose. Yet, Even in this harsh environment, humanity finds a way to bloom. Kolya, sitting just below him in the driver's seat, turns around slowly. His rough, scarred hands are cupped together, holding something small and hidden. He reaches up and gently opens his hands, offering the object to Pavel. It is a tiny, beautifully carved wooden bird. The wood is smooth and polished from years of being rubbed between anxious fingers. It is a simple thing, whittled from a piece of soft pine, but the wings are spread wide, capturing the illusion of effortless flight. Kolya speaks, his voice a low, gravelly whisper that barely carries over the rumble of the engine. He tells Pavel that his grandfather carved the bird for him when he was just a little boy, terrified of the loud thunderstorms that would roll across the plains. He tells him that the bird has always kept him safe, that it has carried his fears away on its tiny, wooden wings. And now, Kolya is giving it to Pavel. Pavel takes the small carving, his fingers brushing against Kolya's calloused skin. The wood feels impossibly light, a stark, beautiful contrast to the crushing weight of the steel that encases them. He holds the bird in his palm, staring at it until his vision blurs with unshed tears. He does not know how to thank this man, this quiet, steadfast friend who has offered him a piece of his own soul. He simply nods, a slow, deep gesture of profound gratitude, and slips the wooden bird into his pocket, right beside the letter. He is carrying so much love with him now. He is armed not just with iron, but with the quiet, enduring grace of the human spirit. There is a profound, almost heartbreaking beauty in these small, tangible objects. A folded letter. A faded photograph. A tiny, carved bird. In the face of overwhelming odds, and the shadow of massive, indifferent machines, these are the things that tether these young men to their humanity. These objects carry the weight of their memories, the warmth of their homes, and the tender, aching love of the people who are waiting for them. We cling to these pieces of the past because they allow us to touch the very souls of those who came before us. They are bridges across time, gentle reminders that history is not made of dates and numbers, but of people who loved, and feared, and hoped, just as we do. If you feel a desire to hold a piece of this history in your own hands, to gently connect with the profound realities of the past, I want to share something with you. We have carefully curated a selection of beautiful, respectful World War II memorabilia, as well as a link to experience the incredible film Midway on Prime Video, which beautifully captures the vast, human emotion of another theater of this great conflict. Exploring these items is a wonderful way to honor these quiet stories, to keep the memory of these fragile, beautiful lives close to your heart. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is simply a way for us to explore the past together, safely and thoughtfully. Now, let us return to the rolling step. The long afternoon is beginning to stretch into early evening. The shadows of the birch trees are growing longer, reaching out across the grass like dark, seeking fingers. The light is turning from amber to a deep, bruised purple, casting long, soft silhouettes across the hills. The vibration in the earth begins to change. It is no longer just a hum. It is a slow, methodical movement. The tracks of the machines begin to turn, biting into the dry, dusty soil. In the solitary machine, Johannes feels the gentle lurch forward. The massive weight of the steel shifts, settling into motion. It is a slow, majestic progression, like a great ship unmooring from the dock and drifting out into deep water. He looks through his narrow vision slit, watching the silver grass part before him. He does not feel like a warrior charging into glory. He feels like a tired, lonely traveler, walking down a long, dark road, carrying the fragile lives of his boys in his hands. He whispers a quiet, steadying word to his driver, a soft murmur of encouragement that is swallowed by the sound of the tracks. Across the wide valley, the 50 machines begin to move as well. They do not rush. They flow over the gentle hills like a slow, dark river of iron. The dust rises behind them, a fine, shimmering mist that catches the dying light of the sun, turning the air into a haze of pale gold and gray. Pavel sits in his moving machine, his hand resting gently over his pocket, feeling the outline of the wooden bird through the heavy fabric of his coat. He closes his eyes and imagines that he is not riding inside a machine of war, but that he is flying. He imagines that he is soaring high above the steppe, above the dust and the noise, drifting on the soft, carrying currents of the evening wind. He feels a strange, profound sense of peace settling over him. He is surrounded by his brothers. He is holding a piece of Kolya's heart. He is loved by the little girl who will read his letter. The two sides are moving closer now, slowly closing the vast distance that separates them. It is a quiet, mournful dance of shadows and steel, playing out on the endless stage of the steppe. There is no hatred in Johannes's heart as he watches the horizon. There is no malice in Pavel's eyes as he looks out over the valley. There is only the tragic, unavoidable momentum of the world, pushing these young men toward a meeting they did not ask for. The wind continues to blow, indifferent to the movement of the metal. It sweeps over the solitary machine, cooling the warm armor plates as the sun begins to set. It flows over the 50 machines, carrying the scent of their exhaust away into the darkening sky. The wind knows that underneath all this iron, underneath the dust and the noise, there are only boys. Boys who miss the smell of blooming roses. Boys who dream of apple blossoms falling on cobblestones. As the light begins to fail, the true weight of the steel is finally revealed. It is not the weight of the armor, or the tracks, or the engines. It is the heavy, sorrowful burden of a world that asks its children to carry its darkest moments. Let the evening settle gently over them. Let the dust soften the harsh lines of their machines. Let the wind carry their quiet, whispered prayers up to the emerging stars. They are moving forward through the fading light, ordinary souls wrapped in extraordinary circumstances, holding tight to the fragile, beautiful remnants of their humanity as the day softly, quietly, slowly fades to black. There is a moment, just before the storm breaks, when the earth itself seems to hold its breath. The sky is now a vast, quiet canvas of bruised violet and deep, velvety indigo. The sun has finally slipped below the edge of the world, leaving behind a lingering, melancholic twilight that softens the harsh edges of the landscape. In this fragile, suspended space between the fading day and the arriving night, the absolute silence of the steppe is slowly, imperceptibly replaced by a new sensation. It is not quite a sound, not yet. It is a tremor. A soft, rhythmic, and heavy shivering that rises from the deep, dark soil, traveling through the ancient roots of the silver grass and creeping into the very bones of the men who wait in the gathering dark. It is the pulse of the heavy iron, a vibration that travels for miles through the undisturbed earth. If you were to lay your cheek against the dry ground tonight, you would feel it beating like the tired, overworked heart of a sleeping giant. It is a sensation that speaks of immense weight, of unstoppable motion, and of a profound, inescapable sorrow. Inside his solitary, iron fortress, Johannes rests his weary, calloused hand against the cold, thick metal of his viewport. The tremor is a physical, living thing in here, a low, steady thrumming that seems to match the anxious, fluttering rhythm of his own chest. He peers out into the deepening dusk. The world outside his narrow slit of glass is painted entirely in shades of gray, ash, and charcoal. He knows what is coming through the darkness, not from the markings on a paper map or the crackling, distant static of a radio, but from the very shifting of the earth beneath his tracks. He slowly turns his head, the dim, amber light casting long, tired shadows across the deep lines of his face. He looks back at his young gunner, a boy who should be sitting at a wooden desk, worrying about mathematics or the awkward, sweet smile of a girl in his village. Instead, the boy's face is pale and taut, illuminated only by the ghostly, pale glow of the instrument dials. His hands are resting on his controls, but his fingers are trembling, tapping a nervous, erratic rhythm against the steel. Johannes does not speak. Words feel too heavy, too clumsy for a moment like this. Instead, he reaches out across the cramped, suffocating space. His rough, worn fingers gently brush the boy's shoulder, a slow, firm, and deeply tender pressure. He leaves his hand there for a long moment. It is a silent, profound promise passed from an older man to a younger one. It says, "I am here. I see your fear. I will carry it for you. I will watch over you." The boy looks up, his eyes catching the amber light, and he offers a small, fragile, heartbreaking nod. His trembling slowly eases. It is a moment of pure, quiet grace in a room built of cold, unforgiving armor. Miles away, across the gently rolling, shadowy hills, the tremor in the earth is multiplied 50 times over. 50 heavy, mechanical hearts beating as one slow, surging tide of steel. Inside his own cramped, jolting world, Pavel closes his eyes. He lets his head fall back against the vibrating metal wall behind him. The air in his enclosure smells sharply of diesel fuel, old canvas, and the metallic tang of nervous sweat, but Pavel breathes it in slowly, steadily. He can feel the tiny, wooden bird in his breast pocket, pressed tightly against his chest, right beside the folded letter to his sister. With every slow, heavy lurch of the tracks beneath him, the little carved wings seem to flutter against his heart. He thinks of the story Kolya told him. He thinks of a grandfather, sitting on a wooden porch, carefully whittling away a child's fear of the loud, terrifying thunder. Pavel holds onto that image, wrapping it around his mind like a soft, woolen blanket against the cold. Kolya is right beside him, his massive, gentle presence a warm, immovable anchor in a turbulent sea of motion. Kolya reaches over, holding a small, slightly damp piece of cloth. With a tenderness that defies the rough, scarred nature of his hands, he gently wipes a smudge of dark oil and fine, powdery dust from Pavel's cheek. Kolya does not look at the horizon, he looks only at Pavel, his eyes crinkling softly at the corners. They share a quiet, unspoken understanding. They are simply two souls, bound together by the dust and the dark, finding a gentle sanctuary in each other's presence. The space between these young men is slowly, inevitably closing. The vast, empty ocean of grass is shrinking, consumed by the creeping shadows and the rising, shimmering clouds of dust. The dust is hauntingly beautiful in the twilight. It swirls around the moving machines like thick, silver fog, catching the last, dying rays of ambient light from the stars. It cloaks the approaching steel, turning the harsh angles and heavy barrels into soft, blurred, ghostly shapes, like ancient, forgotten monuments drifting silently through the mist. There is a profound, almost heartbreaking beauty to be found in these fragile, fleeting moments. History is so often smoothed over by time, the sharp edges of human reality softened into neat, orderly lines on a page, reduced to sweeping arrows on a general's map. But the true story, the beautifully human story, is always found in the unpolished dust. It is found in the tired, frightened eyes of a young man, in the genuine, unposed exhaustion of a soldier leaning against a steel track, in the raw, unseen landscapes of a world forever changed by the tremor of passing iron. If you find a quiet, reflective peace in bearing witness to these true, unfiltered glimpses of the past, I want to gently and warmly welcome you to explore our Gumroad store. There, we have carefully and respectfully gathered a collection of unseen, raw images and media from the war, fragile, delicate moments frozen in time by the lenses of those who were there. These images capture the profound humanity, the quiet resilience, and the everyday reality of the people who walk these dusty paths. It is a space for quiet reflection, a gentle way to look into the eyes of history with deep compassion and understanding. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. Thank you for walking this gentle journey of remembrance with me tonight. Now, let us return to the quiet dark of the steppe. The tremor has grown deeper, a constant, vibrating hum that has chased away the nocturnal animals, leaving the vast plain entirely to the sons of men. The meeting of these shadows does not begin with a terrifying, violent crash. It begins with a sudden, silent bloom of light. Far off on the horizon, a brilliant, pale flash suddenly illuminates the edge of the world, like a beautiful, lonely star falling from the heavens and briefly touching the earth. It casts long, stark shadows across the silver grass, painting the faces of the young men in a fleeting, ghostly white. Then, the sound arrives. It does not crack, it rolls. It is a deep, mournful rumble that travels through the heavy air, washing over the plains like a great, sorrowful sigh from the earth itself. Inside the solitary machine, Johannes feels the slow, heavy recoil of his steel room, a gentle, backward push against the immense weight of the vehicle. A single, empty brass casing falls to the metal floor with a soft, melodic chime, ringing out like a solitary, lonely bell in an empty church. Johannes closes his eyes. He does not feel triumph. He does not feel glory. He feels only a deep, aching sorrow. He is a schoolteacher, a man whose hands were meant to guide chalk across a slate, now sending heavy pieces of steel out into the beautiful, indifferent dark. He whispers a quiet, breathless prayer, asking the night sky to be merciful, asking the wind to carry his apologies to the shadows moving in the distance. Across the valley, a sudden, heavy wave of air buffets Pavel's machine. It is a strong, invisible push, like a sudden gust of wind striking a wooden house in a winter storm. A shower of fine dust falls gently from the low ceiling of his enclosure, settling like a soft, dry snow onto his shoulders. Outside his narrow viewport, a beautiful rain of sparks drifts down through the dark air, glowing orange and red, delicate and fleeting as fireflies caught in an autumn breeze. Pavel instinctively presses his hand harder against his chest, feeling the solid, comforting shape of the wooden bird. Kolya's hand instantly finds Pavel's arm, a firm, steady, and intensely reassuring grip in the dim light. "I am still here," the grip says. "We are still here." Pavel leans his head into Kolya's shoulder, closing his eyes against the dancing sparks. He pictures his sister's face, bright and smiling in the summer sun, holding a gray kitten in her small hands. He holds onto that image with all the strength he possesses, refusing to let the heavy tremor of the earth shake it from his mind. The night continues to wrap its vast, dark arms around all of them. The stars look down from their impossible distance, impartial, quiet, and eternally peaceful. The gentle wind blows across the steppe, slowly carrying away the scent of smoke and heated metal, leaving behind only the smell of crushed grass and dry earth. The tremor slowly begins to fade into the rhythm of the night, becoming just another part of the dark. The great, heavy beasts of steel continue their slow, sorrowful dance in the shadows, but inside them, the human spirit remains soft, resilient, and enduring. Let the night hold them in its quiet embrace. Let the memories of apple blossoms, climbing roses, and wooden birds shield their gentle hearts. They are all just tired travelers moving through the dark, carrying the fragile, beautiful light of their humanity through a world that is trembling beneath their feet. Even in the deepest stretches of the night, the earth remembers the gentle weight of those who travel across her silent face. The world has now slipped into the absolute, velvet center of the dark. The moon, which had been watching over the rolling hills like a pale, quiet guardian, has hidden her face behind a thin, drifting veil of high clouds. The steppe is transformed into a vast, shadow-draped ocean, boundless and profound. The silver grass no longer shimmers, it simply sways in the darkness, a soft, unseen tide reacting to the slow, heavy breath of the night wind. In this quiet hour, when the world usually surrenders to sleep, the silence of the plain is broken only by a rhythm. It is a slow, enduring, mechanical rhythm. It is the sound of the treads. From a distance, you might mistake it for the natural sounds of the earth settling in the cold. It is a steady, hypnotic clatter and sigh, a continuous whispering of iron against dirt. It does not sound like a march of ruin. Stripped of the daylight and the heat, the sound of the moving machines becomes something almost resembling a mournful lullaby. The heavy metal shoes of the tracks press down into the dry, yielding soil, lifting and falling, crushing the brittle stems of the weeds and releasing the faint, earthy scent of ancient dust into the cold air. Inside the solitary, wandering fortress of steel, this rhythm is the only tether to the passing of time. Johannes sits in the dim, amber-soaked gloom of his enclosure, his eyes heavy with a profound, bone-deep exhaustion. The metal walls around him vibrate continuously, a gentle, trembling hum that travels through the soles of his boots and up into his weary heart. He listens to the whisper of his own treads. Clack, sigh, clack, sigh. With his eyes closed, the rhythmic sound slowly transforms in his mind. He lets the present fade away, retreating into the safe, warm sanctuary of his memories. The clatter of the iron track softens, shifting into the familiar, comforting sound of the old pendulum clock that stood in the hallway of his childhood home in Bavaria. He can see the dark, polished wood of the clock cabinet. He can hear its slow, patient ticking, measuring out peaceful, quiet evenings while the snow fell gently outside the frosted windows. He remembers sitting on the woven rug by the hearth, watching the golden firelight dance across the face of his mother as she quietly knitted a woolen scarf. It is such a small, ordinary memory, yet in the cold belly of this iron machine, it is a brilliant, life-sustaining fire. Johannes draws a slow, careful breath, the air tasting of stale oil and nervous sweat, but in his mind, he is breathing in the scent of burning pine and melting snow. He reaches a tired hand into his pocket, his fingertips finding the familiar, frayed string that binds his wife's letters together. He does not need to read them in the dark. Just the texture of the fragile paper against his skin is enough to anchor him. He gently rubs his thumb over the folded edges, a silent, repeated caress. Every turn of the heavy iron treads beneath him carries him further away from the garden with the climbing roses, yet, beautifully, he has never felt closer to the warmth of that home. He carries it entirely within him, a fiercely protected light in the center of the dark. He opens his eyes slowly, looking down at his driver. The young man's shoulders are slumped, his hands resting lightly on the steering levers. The exhaustion is pulling him down like a heavy, unseen tide. Johannes reaches out and gently, deliberately, places his hand on the back of the boy's neck. The boy startles softly, but Johannes simply massages the tense, knotted muscles with a slow, reassuring pressure. He feels the boy exhale a long, shuddering breath, leaning back slightly into the touch. It is a moment of pure, fatherly tenderness, a quiet transmission of strength and comfort. Rest for a moment, the touch says. I am watching the dark for you. Far across the unseen valleys, moving through the exact same shadow, the 50 machines roll onward. Their treads whisper together, creating a low, rushing sound like a wide river flowing over a bed of stones. Inside his cramped, swaying world, Pavel is caught in a half-dream. The continuous, rocking motion of his machine, combined with the low, grinding lullaby of the tracks, has pulled him into a state of quiet numbness. He is resting his cheek against the cold steel plate beside him, his eyes half open, watching the dust motes dance in the faint, ghostly light of the instrument panel. The heavy, suffocating fear of the early evening has burned itself out, leaving behind only a hollow, gentle fatigue. He reaches his hand up to his chest, feeling the solid, comforting shape of the wooden bird Kolya had given him. He traces the smooth, carved curves of its wings through the thick fabric of his coat. It feels like a talisman against the encroaching dark. Beside him, Kolya shifts in his seat. The big, quiet man reaches into his satchel and pulls out a small, dented tin. He pries the lid off with a soft pop, revealing a small handful of dried, sugared fruit, a precious, hoarded luxury from a world that seems impossibly far away. Without a word, Kolya selects a small, wrinkled piece and gently presses it into Pavel's open palm. Pavel puts the dried fruit into his mouth. The sudden, bursting taste of sharp sweetness is overwhelming. It tastes of late summer sun, of busy market squares, of a life meant for living, not just surviving. A single, quiet tear slips from the corner of Pavel's eye, cutting a clean path through the dark dust on his cheek. It is not a tear of sadness, but of profound, aching gratitude for this tiny, sweet reminder of humanity in the middle of a vast, metallic desolation. He shares a look with Kolya. In the dim shadows, they do not look like soldiers. They look like two tired travelers, brothers of the road, offering each other whatever small comforts they can find in the deep of the night. Pavel reaches into his other pocket and touches the rough brown paper of the letter he wrote to his little sister. He knows the words by heart. He knows the little drawing of the sun at the bottom. He promises himself, with every whisper of the treads beneath him, that he will see her face again. He will feel the small, frantic tug of her hand on his sleeve. He will return to the light. It is these hidden, deeply private moments that truly define our history. The story of the world is not simply written in the grand movements of steel or the shifting of invisible lines upon a map. It is written in the shared taste of a piece of sugared fruit in the dark. It is written in the gentle hand of an older man resting on the tired shoulders of a boy. It is written in the letters folded into the pockets of heavy coats and the wooden birds held tight against frightened hearts. These are the whispers of the past, as enduring and constant as the turning of the earth. If you find a deep, resonant peace in listening to these quiet whispers and uncovering the profound human stories that rest beneath the heavy armor of history, I want to warmly invite you to join our Patreon page. There, we offer a collection of free podcasts and gentle deep dives, designed to explore the tender, forgotten corners of our shared past in a calm, welcoming space. We believe that by understanding the quiet resilience of those who came before us, we can find a little more peace in our own lives. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a quiet sanctuary for those who wish to listen softly to the echoes of yesterday. Now, let the soothing rhythm of the treads carry us back into the night. The hours stretch out, long and featureless. The air grows to its coldest, the deep, biting chill that comes just before the turn of the earth toward the sun. Frost begins to form on the heavy metal hulls of the machines, blooming in delicate, beautiful crystalline patterns across the dark green and gray paint. They look like ghost ships, cloaked in ice and dust, drifting silently across the sea of grass. In his lonely machine, Johannes wraps his heavy woolen coat tighter around his shoulders. The cold is seeping through the armor, settling into his joints, but his spirit remains warmly anchored. He thinks of the children in his classroom. He thinks of the bright, chaotic energy of a dozen young voices, the smell of chalk dust, the beautiful, simple task of teaching a child how to read. He closes his eyes and silently recites a poem he used to teach them, a simple rhyme about a little bird waiting for the spring. The words fall like soft snow in his mind, covering the harsh realities of the steel room, burying the anxiety, leaving only a quiet, pristine peace. Across the dark, Pavel has finally succumbed to sleep. He is slumped against Kolya's broad shoulder, his breathing slow and even. Kolya sits perfectly still, refusing to move even a fraction of an inch, absorbing the jolts and sways of the moving machine so that the boy can rest undisturbed. Kolya stares out into the blackness, his scarred face a mask of enduring, stoic love. He is the guardian of this small, iron room. He is the keeper of the boy's dreams. The treads continue their whispered conversation with the earth. They speak of the miles left behind, and the miles yet to come. They speak of the terrible weight they carry, but also of the incredible, fragile resilience of the boys who ride above them. The night will eventually end. The earth will continue its slow, graceful turn, and the pale, hopeful light of dawn will soon begin to bruise the eastern horizon. The stars will fade, slipping away to rest, and the long shadows will slowly retreat from the valleys. But for now, in this suspended, quiet hour, let the dark hold them. Let the gentle rocking of the machines soothe their tired bodies. Let their memories of climbing roses and sunlit bakeries stand as a shield against the cold. They are just ordinary men, dreaming ordinary dreams, carried forward through the vastness of the steppe by the ceaseless, whispering lullaby of the treads. Listen to it fade into the distance. Let the rhythm calm your own heart. Let the quiet heroism of their endurance bring you peace, and let the gentle night wrap you in its long, comforting embrace. A single breath can sometimes feel heavier than 1,000 walls of steel. The night has grown old and weary, its deep, indigo cloak beginning to fray at the very eastern edge of the world. We are in the fragile, suspended hour just before the dawn, a time when the earth is at its absolute coldest and the sky holds its breath in quiet anticipation. The vast ocean of the steppe is still draped in heavy shadows, the silver grass blanketed by a thick, shimmering layer of frost that sparkles faintly under the fading light of the last retreating stars. It is an hour of profound, undisturbed stillness, a moment so incredibly peaceful that you could almost hear a single drop of dew falling from a leaf miles away. Resting upon a low, gently sloping hill, bathed in the pale, ghostly light of the pre-dawn, sits the lone sentinel. It is a solitary machine of immense, unimaginable weight, an island of thick, unyielding iron anchored in a sea of soft, frozen grass. Its wide tracks are sunk deep into the earth, biting into the frosted soil, rooting it to this specific patch of the world. It looks less like a machine of man and more like an ancient, slumbering stone monument left behind by a forgotten age, a quiet guardian keeping a silent, lonely watch over the empty valleys below. Inside the heavy, armor-plated belly of this solitary guardian, the air is biting and crisp, holding the metallic chill of a winter morning. Johannes is awake. He has been awake for hours, his tired eyes gazing out through the narrow, glass-block viewport into the graying distance. The frost has bloomed across the edges of his vision slit, delicate, beautiful, and crystalline, like tiny fern leaves painted in ice. He watches his breath plume softly in the dim light, a gentle, white mist that briefly clouds the glass before fading away into nothing. He is the commander of this lone sentinel, but in the quiet of his own heart, he is still just a gentle schoolteacher from the rolling, green valleys of Bavaria. He feels the immense, crushing weight of isolation pressing down on his shoulders. It is a lonely thing to be the only one standing watch. It is a profoundly solitary burden to be the single point of iron resting between the sleeping world behind him and the vast, unknown shadows moving in the dark ahead. He slowly turns his head, the worn leather of his headset creaking softly in the quiet. He looks down at the young men sleeping around him. They are curled into the cramped, awkward spaces of the middle room, wrapped tightly in thick wool blankets, their breath rising in soft, rhythmic white plumes. The gunner, a boy who barely looks old enough to shave, has his head resting awkwardly against his cold instrument panel. His face is entirely relaxed in sleep, stripped of the tight, anxious mask he wears during the day. In this quiet, fragile moment, he is just a child, dreaming of warm hearths and soft beds. Johannes reaches out with a slow, careful motion, his thick, heavy glove brushing against the thin fabric of the boy's blanket. He gently pulls the wool a few inches higher, tucking it softly around the boy's freezing shoulders. It is such a small, unseen act of tenderness, a quiet, domestic gesture of care unfolding in the center of a cold, metallic fortress. Johannes rests his hand lightly on the boy's back for a moment, feeling the steady, rhythmic rise and fall of his breathing. He is the shepherd of these boys. He is their lonely guardian in the dark, and he would gladly carry all their fears, all their sorrow, if it meant they could sleep just a little longer in peace. He leans back into his own seat, closing his eyes against the cold. He reaches into the breast pocket of his heavy tunic, his numbed fingers seeking out the familiar, worn edges of the photograph he has carried across 1,000 miles of dust and snow. It is the picture of his wife, Clara, and their little girl, Elise. He does not need the light to see it. He knows every shadow, every crease, every soft smile captured on that small piece of paper. He presses his hand over his pocket, holding the image tightly against his beating heart. In the quiet dark of his mind, he builds a gentle sanctuary. He imagines that he is not sitting in a frozen cage of steel, but standing by the window of his own home. He pictures the early morning light filtering through the lace curtains, casting soft, intricate patterns on the wooden floorboards. He can almost smell the warm, rich aroma of coffee brewing in the kitchen. He can almost hear the soft, padding footsteps of his little girl running down the hallway. He holds onto these beautiful, simple memories with a desperate, quiet strength. They are his true armor. They are the gentle, enduring light that keeps the shadows of the steppe from completely consuming his soul. Miles away, across the frost-covered valleys, moving through the very same gray, suspended hour, the 50 machines are also waking. They do not sit on a lonely hill, they are a vast, slumbering community of iron resting together in the shallow dips of the earth. The tremor of their idling engines has returned to the soil, a low, collective hum that vibrates softly through the frozen grass. In the cramped, vibrating belly of his own machine, Pavel slowly opens his tired eyes. He feels the stiff, dull ache in his bones from sleeping against cold, unyielding steel. He blinks away the remnants of a beautiful, warm dream, a dream of sitting under the old apple tree in his mother's courtyard, watching the white blossoms drift down like sweet-smelling snow. The transition from that soft, fragrant memory back to the harsh, diesel-scented reality of his enclosure is a quiet, jarring sorrow. But he is not a lone sentinel. He turns his head and sees Kolya sitting just beside him. The big, quiet man is already awake, his scarred, gentle face illuminated by the faint, pale glow of the dashboard dials. Kolya is holding his dented tin cup, a small wisp of steam rising from the weak, warm tea inside. He catches Pavel's eye and offers a soft, reassuring nod, extending the cup toward him. Pavel takes the warm tin, wrapping his freezing fingers around the metal. The heat seeps into his palms, a beautiful, simple comfort in the middle of the biting cold. He takes a slow sip, the warm liquid cutting through the chill in his chest. He reaches his free hand into his coat pocket, his fingers finding the small, carved wooden bird Kolya had given him. He traces the smooth, worn curves of its wings, a silent, tactile prayer for the morning. He looks out through his own narrow viewport. He cannot see the lone sentinel waiting on the distant hill. He can only see the rolling, frost-covered backs of the other machines in his company, stretching out into the gray mist like a herd of great, sleeping beasts. He feels a profound sense of shared humanity in this quiet moment. He knows that in every one of those machines, there are boys just like him, boys holding onto folded letters, boys clutching wooden birds, boys dreaming of apple blossoms and warm kitchens. They are all just ordinary souls, carrying the heavy, tragic burden of the world on their young, trembling shoulders. History is so often written as a sweeping, roaring tide of great forces and massive armies. It is remembered in broad strokes of victory and defeat, in the grand, sweeping lines drawn across vast maps. But the true, beating heart of the past is not found in the roar of the tide. It is found in the quiet, isolated sentinels. It is found in the unseen moments of a tired schoolteacher pulling a blanket over a sleeping boy. It is found in the silent sharing of warm tea in the freezing dawn. It is found in the hidden operations of the human spirit, the secret, beautiful resilience that keeps the light alive in the deepest dark. There are so many of these quiet sentinels in history, so many hidden stories operating in the shadows, shaping the world in ways we rarely see. If you find a deep, comforting peace in uncovering these unseen narratives, and shining a soft, gentle light into the forgotten corners of the past, I want to warmly invite you to join our email newsletter. As a welcoming gift to our quiet community, I would love to send you a free ebook titled The Shadow War: 5 Top Secret Operations That Shaped World War II. It is a collection of deeply human stories, of hidden courage and quiet resilience, much like the gentle moments we are sharing together tonight. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a gentle way for us to continue this journey together, preserving the quiet voices of the past. Now, let us return to the fading night. Let us sit quietly as the dawn slowly, finally arrives. The gray mist that has blanketed the steppe is beginning to thin, pulling apart in delicate, wispy ribbons. The sky in the east is no longer a bruised indigo, it is lightening into a pale, translucent blue, bruised at the very edge with the softest, faintest shade of rose. The sun is preparing to crest the horizon, ready to wash the frozen world in its warm, golden light. Johannes watches the color returning to the world. He watches the frost on his viewport begin to slowly melt, the tiny ice crystals turning into small, clear drops of water that track slowly down the glass like gentle, silent tears. The heavy burden in his chest does not lift, but it softens. He knows what the rising sun will bring. He knows that the vast, sleeping community of iron in the valley will soon begin to move toward his lonely hill. But in this final, suspended minute, there is still only peace. He listens to the quiet breathing of his boys. He feels the warmth of his wife's photograph against his chest. He is the lone sentinel, a man of chalk and slate wrapped in iron and frost, standing his quiet ground not out of malice or anger, but out of a deep, abiding, and protective love. Across the distance, Pavel finishes his warm tea and hands the tin cup back to Kolya. The big man takes it with a gentle smile, patting Pavel firmly on the shoulder. Pavel looks down at his hands, watching the pale rose light of the dawn slowly creep into his dark, metallic room. He touches the pocket over his heart one last time, feeling the folded letter to his sister. He is ready. He is frightened, he is impossibly tired, but his spirit remains unbroken, buoyed by the quiet kindness of his friend and the beautiful, enduring memory of his home. The wind sweeps across the steppe, a long, continuous breath that rustles the frozen silver grass. It blows over the solitary machine on the hill, and it blows over the 50 machines in the valley, weaving them all together in the soft, morning light. They share the same cold air. They share the same fragile, beautiful human hopes. Let the dawn break slowly over them. Let the first, golden rays of the sun bring them a moment of warmth and quiet comfort. They are all sentinels of the human spirit, standing alone together in the vastness of the world, holding onto the light of their memories as the new day quietly, gently, begins. When the light finally touches the edge of the world, even the shadows must decide what they are going to be. The dawn does not arrive all at once upon the wide, rolling expanse of the steppe. It is a slow, gentle awakening, a quiet unraveling of the dark. The pale, bruised indigo of the early morning sky slowly softens into a fragile, translucent blue, and then, at the very edge of the earth, the sun finally spills over the horizon. It is a brilliant, liquid gold that washes across the silver grass, chasing away the clinging mist and melting the delicate, crystalline frost that had painted the world in white. For a moment, the landscape is simply a breathtaking painting of light and dew, an untouched sanctuary breathing in the crisp, clean air of a new day. But as the sun climbs just a fraction higher, its rays catch upon something that does not belong to the natural world. The light does not just illuminate the gentle curves of the hills and the scattered, pale trunks of the birch trees. It strikes against cold, unyielding edges. It reflects off thick, painted steel. From the vantage point of the solitary machine resting upon its lonely hill, the eastern horizon is no longer simply a line dividing the earth and the sky. It has become a horizon of iron. Johannes sits in the commander's cupola, the heavy metal hatch pushed open just enough for him to feel the morning breeze against his tired, deeply lined face. He looks through his binoculars, the heavy, cold glass pressed against his brow. Through the magnified lenses, the distant hills seem to ripple and shift. But it is not the wind moving through the grass. It is the slow, inexorable approach of 50 heavy machines, crawling forward shoulder to shoulder. They look like a great, dark wave of steel, rising and falling with the contours of the earth, a mechanical tide threatening to sweep over his solitary, anchored island. He lowers the binoculars. His hands, usually so steady, tremble just a fraction before he clasps them tightly together in his lap. The sheer scale of what is approaching is almost too vast for the human mind to fully hold. It is a terrible, magnificent, and deeply sorrowful sight. He does not feel the fierce, burning pride of a warrior preparing to hold his ground. He feels a profound, aching hollowness. To escape the crushing weight of the present, Johannes closes his eyes and lets the golden sunlight warm his eyelids. He desperately reaches back into his past, pulling a specific, beautiful memory forward to act as a shield against the iron horizon. He remembers a 5-day spring trip he took with Clara and little Elise, traveling far away from their valley to the high, snow-capped mountains. He remembers the crisp, thin air that tasted sweetly of pine and ancient, cold stone. He remembers the joyful, musical sound of Elise's laughter as they rode a small, winding train up the steep, forested inclines, the world falling away beneath them until they were surrounded only by clouds and peaks. He remembers standing at the summit with his family, his arm wrapped tightly around his wife's waist, looking out over a vast, majestic landscape that felt so impossibly peaceful, so far removed from the petty squabbles and dark ambitions of men. He holds onto that memory with every ounce of strength he has left. He breathes in the dusty air of the tank, but in his heart, he is breathing in the mountain wind. He is not a man of iron. He is a father, holding onto the peak of a spring mountain, refusing to let the shadows drag him down. Across the vast, shrinking distance, the 50 machines continue their slow, rhythmic advance. The ground trembles beneath them, a continuous, heavy shudder that knocks the remaining dew from the stalks of grass. Inside the leading edge of this great wave of steel, Pavel sits in the dim, vibrating belly of his machine. The interior is growing warm as the sun heats the thick, sloped armor plates above him. The smell of diesel fuel and heated engine oil is thick in the air, a harsh, mechanical perfume that coats the back of his throat. Yet, despite the noise, despite the trembling earth and the terrible momentum carrying him forward, Pavel feels a strange, detached calm settling over him. He looks at Kolya, who is expertly working the steering levers, his massive, scarred hands moving with a surprising, fluid grace. Kolya catches his eye and offers a slow, reassuring nod, a silent communication that cuts through the roar of the engine. "We are together," the nod says. "No matter what the horizon brings, we do not face it alone." Pavel leans his head back against the warm steel wall. He touches his chest, feeling the reassuring bulk of the folded letter and the small, carved wooden bird hidden in his pocket. As the machine lurches forward, his thoughts drift away from the steppe, traveling hundreds of miles backward to a small, quiet house in a village he misses with an intensity that physically aches. He thinks of his mother. He pictures her in the late afternoons in their small, sunlit kitchen. He remembers the air growing thick and warm, deeply fragrant with the rich, earthy scent of her carefully blending her spice mixes. He can almost see her worn, loving hands, dusted with the golden hue of turmeric and the deep, warm rust of paprika, as she rhythmically ground coriander and cumin in a heavy stone bowl. She would work with such quiet, deliberate care, wrapping the fragrant powders in small paper parcels to store for the winter, or to send to neighbors who needed comfort. Pavel swallows hard, a lump forming in his throat. He realizes, with a sudden, poignant clarity, that his greatest desire is not for glory, or victory, or the defeat of the lone machine waiting on the hill. His greatest desire is simply to be able to send her a message right now. He wishes he could send her a letter, or a small parcel of comfort, just to let her know he is safe. He wants to ensure her household is at peace, to prioritize her well-being over his own immediate fear. He wants to be the son who cares for his mother, not the soldier who breaks the world. He closes his eyes and mentally wraps all his love into a small, fragile parcel, trusting the gentle morning wind to somehow carry it back to her kitchen. The two sides of this vast, tragic play are drawing ever closer. The horizon of iron is no longer a distant, blurry line. Johannes can now see the distinct shapes of the approaching machines, the dust billowing up from their wide tracks, turning the golden morning light into a hazy, shimmering mist. Pavel can now see the lone, massive silhouette of the Guardian on the hill, sitting silently, waiting like an immovable stone in the path of a river. It is a moment suspended in time. The engines roar, the tracks clatter, the earth shakes, but within the hearts of these men, there is a profound, almost eerie silence. They are entirely ordinary souls, school teachers and village boys, brothers and fathers, caught in the unforgiving machinery of a history they did not ask to write. They are carrying the fragile, beautiful memories of mountain trains and fragrant kitchens into a space where those things cannot survive. Yet, perhaps they do survive. Perhaps the true substance of history is not the iron that rusts away in the fields, but the love that is carried within those iron walls. The memories, the folded letters, the gentle kindness shared between friends in the dark, these are the things that endure. They are the quiet, whispered stories that echo long after the engines have finally fallen silent. Preserving these delicate, human echoes is a task that requires gentle hands and open hearts. If you find a quiet peace in helping us brush the dust from these forgotten narratives and ensuring that these deeply human stories outlive the cold iron of the past, I want to warmly invite you to visit our Ko-Fi tip jar. It is a simple, friendly space where you can offer a small gesture of support, perhaps the equivalent of buying us a warm cup of coffee as we work to keep these gentle histories alive. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. Your support is a beautiful kindness, a vital bridge that helps us carry these fragile memories from the shadows of the past into the light of the present. Now, let us return to the final, quiet moments before the storm. The distance has closed. The 50 machines begin to slow their advance, fanning out across the gentle slopes of the valley, forming a vast, formidable semicircle around the base of the hill. The sound of their engines drops from a roar to a low, heavy idle. The air is suddenly, shockingly thick with a tense, expectant silence. Johannes looks down upon them from his high vantage point. He does not reach for his radio. He does not call out orders to his young crew. He simply sits in the golden light, his hand resting softly over his breast pocket, feeling the photograph of Clara and Elise beneath the heavy fabric. He takes a long, slow breath, tasting the dust and the exhaust, but feeling only a deep, enduring peace. He has brought his memories to the edge of the world, and they have not failed him. Down in the valley, Pavel looks up through his narrow glass slit at the solitary giant on the hill. Kolya reaches over, his large hand gently covering Pavel's trembling shoulder. It is a final, wordless exchange of comfort. Pavel touches the wooden bird in his pocket one last time. He thinks of the golden turmeric, the fragrant cumin, and the warm sun shining through his mother's kitchen window. The wind sweeps across the space between them, a neutral, indifferent breeze that rustles the silver grass and stirs the settling dust. It touches the cold steel of the lone sentinel, and it brushes against the warm armor of the 50 challengers. Let the wind carry their unwritten letters. Let the morning light hold them in its warm embrace for just a moment longer. They are standing upon the very edge of history, a horizon built of iron and sorrow, but their hearts remain deeply, beautifully human. Let them rest in this final, fragile pocket of peace, ordinary men facing the extraordinary unknown, wrapped in the enduring grace of their memories, as the earth holds its breath, and waits. Even the wind holds its breath when the world stands upon the edge of forever. There is a profound, almost sacred silence that falls over the earth just before the turning of a great page. The morning has fully arrived, bathing the vast, endless ocean of the steppe in a brilliant, clear, and golden light. The shadows of the night have been completely chased away, leaving behind a landscape that feels startlingly new, innocent, and beautiful. The silver grass sways gently, millions of fragile stems bowing in quiet unison to the soft morning breeze. The sky above is a vast, uninterrupted dome of pale blue, a ceiling so high and perfect it makes the world below seem impossibly small. If you were to stand in the center of this wide valley, closing your eyes and turning your face up to the sun, you would feel only warmth. You would hear only the rustle of the dry earth and the distant, melodic call of a lone bird tracing circles in the sky. You would not know that you were standing in the very center of history. You would only know the peace of the morning, the quiet, steady rhythm of the natural world continuing its ancient, unbroken dance. But scattered across this beautiful, sunlit canvas are the great, heavy machines of men. They sit in the shallow dips of the hills and upon the gentle rises, their dark, painted steel standing in stark contrast to the pale greens and golds of the grass. The engines have been idled down to a low, trembling whisper. The terrible, deafening roar of their movement has ceased, replaced by a deep, resonant hum that vibrates through the soil. It is the sound of a resting heartbeat, slow, heavy, and full of anxious waiting. We are in the quiet breath before. It is a suspended, fragile moment in time, a tiny sanctuary of stillness wedged between the long, exhausting journey of the night and the unimaginable reality of what is to come. Inside the solitary, massive machine resting on the high ground, the air is thick with this waiting. The interior is bathed in the soft, warm glow of the morning sun that filters through the narrow vision blocks, illuminating the dancing motes of dust that float aimlessly in the cabin. Johannes sits perfectly still in the commander's seat. His hands, rough and calloused from a lifetime of holding chalk and turning the pages of worn books, rest lightly on his knees. He is not looking through the optics. He is not scanning the horizon for the approaching shadows. He has already seen them. He knows they are there. Instead, he is listening. He is listening to the breathing of the young men who share this cramped, iron room with him. In the profound silence of the idling engine, every breath is magnified. He hears the shallow, rapid inhales of his gunner, a boy trying desperately to swallow his fear. He hears the slow, deliberate exhales of his driver, a man trying to project a calm he does not truly feel. Johannes closes his eyes and lets the sound of their breathing wash over him. It is a deeply intimate, heartbreaking chorus. These are the sounds of life, fragile and precious, echoing within a shell designed for anything but living. He wants to speak. He wants to offer a profound word of comfort, a fatherly reassurance that everything will be all right. But he knows that words are empty vessels in this place. The truth of the morning is too large, too heavy to be carried by language. So, he simply reaches out his foot and gently, playfully, taps the boot of the gunner sitting below him. It is a tiny, physical connection. A gentle reminder that they are tethered to one another. The gunner looks up, his eyes wide and bright in the dim light, and Johannes offers a slow, warm, crinkling smile. A smile that says, "I am with you. We breathe this air together." Just across the narrow aisle of the machine sits the young radio operator, a boy whose uniform hangs loosely on his narrow frame. His hands are resting on his lap, his fingers gently tracing the outline of a square piece of paper hidden deep within his breast pocket. He is staring at the steel wall in front of him, but he does not see the rivets or the peeling green paint. He sees a cobbled street in a town he has not walked in years. He sees the warm, flickering lights of the local picture show. For months, he has been exchanging letters with a girl from a neighboring village. They have never truly courted, the world fell apart before they ever had the chance. But through the fragile pages of their letters, a quiet, beautiful connection has blossomed. He knows the scent of the stationery she uses. He knows the looping, hurried way she signs her name. In this quiet breath before the storm, he builds a complete, perfect memory of a future he hopes to hold. He is planning their very first true meeting. He imagines the nervous, fluttering thrill in his chest as he waits for her outside the cinema. He pictures the dim, magical dark of the theater, the silver screen casting moving shadows across her face, and the quiet, terrifying courage it will take to simply reach across the armrest and brush his hand against hers. And afterward, he imagines taking her for a ride on his older brother's motor scooter. He can almost feel the cool evening wind rushing past them, the gentle, trusting weight of her arms wrapped securely around his waist as they navigate the winding country lanes beneath a canopy of stars. It is such a beautifully simple, innocent dream. It is a dream of moving pictures, of motor scooters, of the nervous excitement of a first touch. It is the dream of a young man who has so much life left to live, a life that has been paused and placed inside an iron box. He presses his hand firmly against his pocket, holding the letter, holding the picture show, holding the evening ride close to his racing heart. This gentle hope is his armor. It is the soft, enduring light he carries into the dark. It is breathtaking to realize that history is constructed entirely of these quiet, hidden hopes. We so often view the past through the cold, distant lens of grand strategy and sweeping movements. We see the heavy machines, but we forget the folded letters. We forget the motor scooter rides and the quiet smiles in the dark of a cinema. We forget that every piece of steel was guided by a human heart, a heart filled with the exact same fears, the exact same simple desires, and the exact same capacity for love that we hold within ourselves today. Holding on to these human stories, touching the physical remnants of these quiet lives, provides a profound comfort. It bridges the vast canyon of time and reminds us of our shared humanity. If you feel a gentle pull to connect with this deeply human past, to hold a tangible piece of this history, I want to share a caring recommendation. Through our Amazon affiliate links, you can explore a curated, thoughtful selection of World War II memorabilia, physical touchstones from a time that asked so much of ordinary people. We also have a link to the beautiful, sprawling film Midway on Prime, a movie that masterfully captures the complex, emotional human stories behind the grand tapestry of the era. Exploring these pieces is a wonderful way to honor these fragile memories and keep their quiet whispers alive. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is simply a way to reach across time, safely and with an open heart. Now, let us return to the quiet morning on the steppe. The sun continues its slow, majestic climb into the pale blue sky, warming the cold earth and baking the dew from the silver grass. Across the wide, golden valley, the great semicircle of 50 machines rests in the same suspended silence. They sit like a gathering of patient, watchful elders, their long barrels casting sharp, dark shadows across the dusty ground. The trembling hum of their engines fills the air, a collective, mechanical sigh that blends with the gentle whisper of the morning wind. Inside his own machine, Pavel is leaning his head back against the heavy metal wall. The interior is growing warm, the thick air smelling of heated iron and the faint, sweet scent of the dried fruit Kolya had shared with him in the deep of the night. He is so incredibly tired, a weariness that reaches all the way down into the marrow of his bones. Yet, in this quiet breath before, the exhaustion feels like a heavy, comforting blanket. He does not feel the paralyzing, sharp terror he expected. Instead, a profound, eerie calm has settled over him, like the smooth, glass-like surface of a deep pond just before the first raindrop falls. He reaches into his pocket and touches the small, carved wooden bird. He traces the smooth, polished wings with his thumb, a slow, rhythmic motion that perfectly matches the beating of his heart. He looks over at Kolya. The big man is sitting perfectly still, his massive hands resting gently on the levers, his scarred face turned toward the narrow slit of glass that looks out onto the valley. The golden sunlight catches the dust motes swirling around his head, giving him the appearance of an ancient, patient saint sitting in quiet contemplation. Kolya turns his head slowly, feeling Pavel's gaze. He does not offer a brave smile. He does not offer words of encouragement. He simply reaches across the cramped space and places his large, warm hand completely over Pavel's trembling fingers. The grip is firm, anchoring, and deeply loving. It is a silent, beautiful vow. Whatever this morning brings, we meet it together. You are not alone in the dark. I am right here. Pavel closes his eyes, letting the warmth of Kolya's hand seep into his cold skin. He takes a long, slow, trembling breath in. He fills his lungs with the smell of the machine, the smell of the dust, and the smell of the morning air slipping through the cracks in the armor. This is the quiet breath. It is the final inhale before the world changes forever. Outside, the wind continues its gentle journey across the steppe. It rustles the dry stalks of grass. It sweeps over the lone guardian on the hill. It weaves between the resting machines in the valley. The wind does not judge. It does not take sides. It simply observes the fragile, beautiful, tragic tapestry of human life resting upon the earth. For this one, lingering, perfect moment, there is no conflict. There is no fire. There is only the golden light, the trembling earth, and the beating hearts of men who miss their mothers, who dream of motor scooter rides, and who find their greatest strength in the quiet, simple touch of a friend's hand. Let the moment stretch out. Let the stillness hold them for just a second longer. Rest here with them, in the beautiful, sorrowful peace of the morning. Breathe in the quiet. Hold it softly in your lungs, and let the gentle, whispering silence of the steppe wrap around you like a warm embrace, honoring the fragile beauty of the breath that comes just before the storm. Even when the world is burning, a single spark can sometimes look like a falling star. The long, unimaginably heavy day has finally surrendered to the gentle, forgiving embrace of the evening. The fierce, golden heat of the sun, which had baked the vast ocean of the steppe and turned the iron machines into stifling, breathless ovens, has slowly, quietly burned itself out. The sky is no longer a bright, indifferent blue. It has softened, melting into a breathtaking canvas of bruised violets, deep, melancholic indigos, and the faintest, lingering ribbons of dark orange at the very edge of the earth. The twilight has arrived, a heavy, velvet curtain falling gracefully over the rolling hills, bringing with it a profound and beautiful silence. The great, terrible storm has passed. We do not need to speak of the thunder, or the noise, or the shaking of the earth. We only need to know that the silence has returned, washing over the landscape like a cool, healing tide. The heavy machines, the solitary guardian, and the vast community of steel are no longer moving. They are scattered across the darkening valleys and the shadowed hills, their engines finally, completely still. The only sound that remains is a soft, rhythmic ticking. It is the gentle, musical tink, tink, tink of thick, heavy steel slowly cooling in the crisp evening air. It is a peaceful, domestic sound, reminiscent of a hot iron stove settling in a warm kitchen after a long day of baking bread. Inside the solitary machine, resting upon its hill, the air is thick with the smell of scorched metal, sweat, and the fine, powdery dust of the steppe. The commander's hatch has been thrown wide open to the twilight sky. Johannes sits just beneath it, his head tilted back, his eyes closed, letting the cool, clean evening breeze wash over his face. He is covered in a fine layer of dark gray ash, the soot settling into the deep, tired lines around his eyes and mouth. He looks older now, aged not by years, but by the sheer, crushing weight of survival. He slowly opens his eyes and looks up at the emerging stars. They are just beginning to prick through the deep violet fabric of the sky, tiny, fragile pinpricks of silver light. He watches a single, glowing ember, a spark from the still smoldering exhaust, drift lazily upward through the open hatch. It dances in the air for a brief, beautiful moment, glowing bright orange against the dark, before it finally fades into ash and is carried away by the wind. Johannes reaches down into his pocket. His hands are completely numb, heavy and slow to obey, but his fingers find the frayed string and the folded paper. He draws out the photograph of Clara and little Elise. The dim, fading light of the twilight is barely enough to make out their faces, but he does not need to see them clearly. He knows them with his soul. He presses the photograph to his lips, a long, silent, trembling kiss. A single, hot tear escapes his closed eyes, cutting a clean, white path through the soot on his cheek. It is a tear of such profound, overwhelming relief that it empties his entire chest. He is still here. He is still breathing. He will see the climbing roses again. He slowly lowers himself back into the dim belly of the machine. The interior is a sanctuary of shadows. His boys, his precious, young crew, are utterly exhausted. The radio operator is slumped forward, his arms wrapped around his knees, his head resting against the cool metal wall. He is fast asleep, his breathing deep and even, his chest rising and falling in a steady, comforting rhythm. Johannes reaches out and gently smooths the boy's dust-caked hair, a tender, fatherly touch in the dark. "Sleep now," he whispers into the quiet. "The day is done. I will watch the stars for you." Across the wide, shadowed valley, hidden in a gentle depression in the earth, the 50 machines sit in quiet congregation. The evening mist is beginning to rise from the damp soil, curling around the heavy, sloped armor plates like soft, ghostly fingers. Pavel is sitting outside his machine, his back resting against the massive, cooling tracks. The earth beneath him is cold, but the metal against his spine is still radiating a gentle, fading warmth. His knees are pulled up to his chest, and his hands are wrapped tightly around them. He is trembling. It is not the biting chill of the evening wind that makes him shake, it is the sudden, overwhelming absence of adrenaline. It is the shocking, beautiful realization that he has survived the day. Kolya steps out from the shadows. The big man moves slowly, his massive shoulders slumped with a weariness that seems to pull him toward the earth. In his rough, scarred hands, he carries a heavy wool blanket. He does not say a word as he approaches Pavel. He simply unfolds the blanket, shaking the dust from it, and drapes it gently, securely around Pavel's trembling shoulders. He tucks the edges in, making sure the boy is completely enveloped in the rough, warm wool. Kolya sits heavily on the ground beside him, leaning against the same iron track. From his satchel, he produces a small, battered canteen. He unscrews the cap and hands it to Pavel. Pavel takes the canteen with shaking hands. The water inside is stale, tasting of tin and earth, but as it flows down his dry, dust-coated throat, it feels like the most exquisite, life-giving nectar he has ever tasted. He drinks slowly, closing his eyes, letting the cool water ground him back to his body. When he lowers the canteen, he looks at Kolya. Kolya's face is smeared with grease and soot, but his eyes, catching the faint light of the stars, are incredibly soft. They are the eyes of a man who has seen the absolute edge of the world and is profoundly grateful to be sitting in the grass once more. Pavel reaches beneath the wool blanket, his hand slipping into his coat pocket. His fingers wrap around the small, carved wooden bird. The smooth, polished wood feels like an anchor in his palm. He had held onto it so tightly during the day that he thought he might crush it, but it remains whole, perfect, and unbroken. He thinks of the letter to his sister, still resting safely against his heart. He imagines her opening it. He imagines her tracing the clumsy little drawing of the sun at the bottom of the page. The fear of the morning has been entirely replaced by a quiet, resilient hope. History so often forgets the soot on a young man's cheek. It forgets the way a boy's hands shake as he holds a tin canteen of water in the fading light. We read the sweeping books and look at the neat, orderly maps, but we so easily lose the raw, beautiful, and heartbreaking reality of the human face caught in the twilight. We miss the profound exhaustion, the silent tears of relief, and the quiet, enduring grace of a shared blanket in the cold. If you find a deep, quiet comfort in connecting with these true, unfiltered moments, and seeing the past not as a collection of dates, but as a tapestry of deeply human experiences, I want to warmly invite you to explore our Gumroad store. There, we have carefully gathered a gentle collection of unseen, raw images and media from the war, fragile, unposed glimpses into the reality of these quiet hours. It is a space to look into the eyes of history with compassion, to see the dust, the fatigue, and the incredible resilience of ordinary people just like Pavel and Johannes. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a caring, safe way to hold these forgotten memories in your own hands, and to ensure these quiet faces are never lost to the dark. Now, let us rest with them in the deepening night. The twilight has fully faded, giving way to a vast, magnificent canopy of stars. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of pale, crushed diamonds, indifferent to the troubles of the earth, offering only its cold, ancient beauty. The wind sweeps across the steppe, a long, continuous breath that rustles the dry, silver grass. It carries the scent of the crushed weeds, the damp earth, and the faint, lingering smell of heated iron. In the distance, across the valley, a tiny, flickering light appears. It is a small, carefully shielded campfire, built in the deep hollow of the earth. It is so small it barely illuminates the faces of the men sitting around it, but in the vast, dark ocean of the steppe, it is a beacon of life. Johannes sees the tiny light from his high vantage point. He does not feel a surge of animosity. He does not see an enemy in the dark. He only sees another group of tired, frightened men huddled around a small flame, trying to chase away the cold. He watches a few tiny, orange sparks drift up from their fire, floating into the night sky until they are completely indistinguishable from the stars above. Down in the valley, sitting near that small, hidden fire, Pavel watches the exact same sparks drift upward. The warmth of the flames dances across his face, easing the tension in his jaw. Kolya is quietly humming a low, mournful folk tune, a song about a river and a weeping willow tree. The melody is simple, repetitive, and deeply soothing. It blends perfectly with the rhythmic, metallic tink, tink, tink of the cooling machines, creating a strange, beautiful lullaby for the end of the day. For this one, perfect, suspended night, there is no conflict. The great, invisible lines drawn by men in distant rooms have vanished, swallowed entirely by the dark. There is only the vast earth, the brilliant, starry sky, and the shared, quiet miracle of simply being alive. The two men, separated by miles of dark grass and the heavy armor of their machines, are united by the exact same night. They breathe the same cold air. They watch the same sparks drift up into the twilight. They carry the exact same profound, aching love for the people waiting for them at home. Let the night wrap its dark, velvet arms around them. Let the cold wind soothe their tired bodies. Let the quiet ticking of the iron sing them into a deep, dreamless sleep. They have carried the heavy, sorrowful weight of the world today, but tonight, they are just ordinary souls, resting under the ancient stars, finding peace in the gentle, fading sparks of the twilight. Let the silence hold you, too. Let the quiet resilience of their hearts bring you comfort, and let the gentle dark carry you softly into your own restful slumber. Long after the fire has finally faded, the cold iron still remembers the gentle warmth of the hands that once held it. Time is a very quiet, very patient thing. It does not rush. It does not roar like the engines of the past, nor does it crash like the terrible storms that once swept across this vast, ancient landscape. Time simply flows, as soft and inevitable as a deep, slow-moving river, washing over the sharp edges of the world until everything is smooth, silent, and entirely at peace. If you were to walk across the endless, rolling ocean of the steppe today, far away from the towns and the paved roads, you would find a world completely reclaimed by the gentle hands of nature. The silver grass still sways in the evening breeze, an endless, rippling tide of pale green and gold. The birch trees still stand in their quiet, trembling groves, their white bark peeling softly in the summer heat. The earth still breathes, a slow, rhythmic rising and falling of dust and seasons, completely indifferent to the lines drawn on forgotten maps. But if you look closely, hidden beneath the tall weeds and the climbing vines, you will find them. The silent sleepers. The echoes of the hull. They sit exactly where the great storm left them, scattered across the gentle hills and the shallow valleys like ancient, slumbering stones. The heavy, terrifying machines of iron and steel have been entirely transformed by the patient work of the seasons. The harsh, dark paint has long since peeled away, replaced by the soft, warm, earthy tones of rust, deep, melancholic oranges, rich, burnt siennas, and soft, velvety browns. They no longer look like machines of conflict. They look like natural outcroppings of the earth itself, heavy iron boulders that have simply sprouted from the soil, resting peacefully under the open sky. The silver grass has grown up and through the massive metal tracks, wrapping delicate, green fingers around the unyielding steel, anchoring it forever to the earth. Wildflowers, tiny, brilliant splashes of pale blue and delicate yellow, bloom in the crevices of the armor, finding life and sustenance in the very places where fear once resided. The long, heavy barrels, once raised in anger, now droop slightly toward the ground, serving only as quiet perches for the small, singing birds of the steppe. When the wind blows across the plains, it sweeps through the open, rusted hatches of these empty hulls. It moves through the dark, hollow chambers, brushing against the flaking metal and the empty seats. And as it does, it creates a sound. It is a low, mournful, incredibly beautiful sound, like breath passing through the wooden body of an old, forgotten cello. It is the sound of the iron exhaling. If you were to approach the solitary machine, the lone sentinel resting upon its high, quiet hill, and place your hand against the sun-warmed rust of its hull, you might feel the faintest, lingering vibration of its past. The interior is empty now, stripped of its dials and its leather, filled only with the dry, fragrant dust of the surrounding fields. But the space inside is not truly vacant. It is filled to the absolute brim with echoes. If you close your eyes and listen to the soft whistling of the wind through the commander's cupola, you can almost hear the quiet, steady breathing of Johannes. You can feel the ghost of his gentle, fatherly presence filling the cramped, dark room. The heavy iron walls absorbed the terrible cold of those nights, yes, but they also absorbed the profound, fiercely protective love he held for his young crew. That love did not simply vanish when the engine stopped. It seeped into the steel. It settled into the very grain of the metal. You can almost see him sitting there in the dim, amber gloom, his calloused hands that were meant to hold chalk and slate, resting lightly on his knees. You can almost feel the gentle, agonizing weight of the photograph he carried in his breast pocket. The image of Clara and little Elise in her white dress is forever burned into the atmosphere of this tiny space. The whole remembers his silent, desperate prayers. It remembers the way he gently pulled a rough wool blanket over the trembling shoulders of a sleeping boy. It remembers that he was not a monster of iron, but a man of flesh and beautiful, enduring memory, wishing only to smell the climbing roses of his Bavarian home one last time. And miles away, resting in the gentle dip of the valley, sits another hull. It is one of the 50, indistinguishable from the outside, cloaked in the exact same rust and the exact same climbing vines. But inside, it holds its own profound, invisible echoes. Step inside this hollow shell, letting the soft, dusty light of the afternoon sun filter in through the rusted vision slits. The floor is covered in a soft carpet of dry, brown leaves blown in by the autumn winds, rustling gently with every passing breeze. Yet, in the quiet corners of this iron room, the memory of Pavel and Kolya remains as vibrant and alive as the wildflowers blooming on the tracks outside. If you reach out and touch the cold, flaking steel where Pavel once sat, you can almost feel the frantic, terrified, beautiful beating of his young heart. You can feel the profound relief that washed over him when Kolya, the big, quiet guardian, pressed a small tin cup of warm, watery tea into his freezing hands. The whole remembers the exact shape of their friendship. It remembers the smell of the stale oil mixed with the sudden, sharp, impossibly sweet scent of dried fruit shared in the absolute dead of night. It remembers the tiny, carved wooden bird. The wood has long since returned to the earth, but the gentle, comforting weight of its smooth wings still lingers in the empty air, a phantom talisman against the dark. The whole holds the echo of the clumsy, beautiful letters Pavel wrote to his little sister. It remembers the soft, scratching sound of his chewed pencil lead against the rough, brown paper. It remembers the little drawing of the smiling sun, a tiny beacon of innocent hope sketched in the center of a mechanical nightmare. These iron rooms, scattered across the serene, quiet landscape, are not monuments to ruin. They are beautiful, sorrowful time capsules of the human spirit. They are vessels that held the deepest fears, the purest loves, and the quietest moments of everyday heroism the world has ever known. The metal was hard, but the hearts inside were impossibly soft, incredibly resilient, and deeply, universally human. These echoes, these quiet whispers of the whole, are so incredibly fragile. As the years pass and the rust slowly consumes the steel, the physical reminders of these beautiful lives will eventually fade entirely into the soil. That is why it is so deeply important that we listen to them while we still can. We must lean in closely to the wind, we must touch the rough surface of the past, and we must gently carry these stories forward in our own hearts. If you find a comforting, restful peace in seeking out these hidden echoes, and gently brushing away the dust of time to reveal the tender humanity resting beneath the heavy armor of history, I want to warmly invite you to join our Patreon page. It is a quiet, welcoming space where we share free podcasts and long, soothing deep dives into the unseen corners of our shared past. We take the time to sit in the quiet, to listen to the whispers, and to honor the gentle resilience of those who came before us. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is simply a peaceful sanctuary for us to explore the beautiful, enduring human spirit together, safely and with an open heart. Now, let us return to the steppe, as the late afternoon slowly, gracefully transitions into the early evening. Imagine a soft, gentle rain beginning to fall over the vast, rolling plains. The sky turns a beautiful, bruised shade of slate gray, and the first, heavy drops begin to fall, striking the dry earth with a soft, fragrant sigh. The rain falls upon the silver grass, washing away the dust of the long, hot day. And then, the rain falls upon the rusted hulls. Listen to the sound it makes. It is a soft, rhythmic drumming. Pitter-patter. Pitter-patter. The raindrops strike the thick, sloping armor plates, creating a deeply soothing, melodic percussion that echoes softly across the empty valleys. The water pools in the shallow dents and scratches, creating tiny, perfect, reflecting mirrors that catch the dim, gray light of the cloudy sky. It is the sound of the earth washing away the past. It is a sound of cleansing, of renewal, of absolute, profound peace. When we hear the story of one great machine standing against 50, our minds are naturally drawn to the scale. We see the terrifying math of steel and fire. We imagine a clash of impossible titans. But when you stand here in the rain, listening to the soft drumming of the water against the empty hulls, you realize that the numbers mean absolutely nothing. It was never 1 against 50. It was simply 51 tiny, isolated rooms. It was 51 quiet, trembling spaces filled with boys who missed their mothers. Men who longed for the smell of climbing roses and the taste of sweet, sugary bread. Teachers and farmers, brothers and sons, all breathing the exact same cold night air, all looking up at the exact same distant and different stars, all praying for the exact same dawn to arrive safely. The uniforms were different. The languages they whispered in the dark were different. The shapes of the heavy iron that encased them were different. But the echoes they left behind in the quiet of the holes are entirely, beautifully identical. They are the echoes of love. They are the echoes of a desperate, clinging hope. They are the echoes of the small, quiet, unseen kindnesses that kept the human soul alive when the world tried to extinguish it. The rain continues to fall, a steady, comforting blanket of sound wrapping around the world. The day is fading, the light turning soft and dim as the evening slowly approaches. The birds have retreated to the safety of the birch groves, tucking their heads beneath their wings to sleep. The animals of the steppe have returned to their burrows, seeking warmth and rest in the deep, dark earth. Only the hulls remain, sitting quietly in the rain, bearing silent witness to the enduring grace of the men who once called them home. Let the sound of the falling rain soothe your tired mind. Let the gentle drumming against the rusted steel wash away the worries and the heavy burdens of your own day. Close your eyes and picture the vast, peaceful expanse of the steppe, the silver grass drinking in the cool water, the earth softening and resting under the gray, comforting sky. The storm of the past is over. The engines are forever silent. The men have all gone home, leaving behind only the most beautiful, fragile parts of themselves in the quiet dark of the iron. Let their memories rest. Let the echoes fade gently into the soothing rhythm of the rain. Breathe in the cool, clean air of the peaceful earth, and allow yourself to drift slowly, softly, and completely into a deep, restful slumber. You are safe. The night is quiet. And the beautiful, enduring human spirit is resting peacefully, watching over you in the dark. Even the thickest smoke cannot hide the gentle light of a memory. The world has become a canvas of soft, drifting gray. The great, roaring storm that swept across the vast ocean of the steppe has finally exhausted itself, leaving behind a profound and heavy stillness. The earth, which had trembled and shuddered under the immense weight of the iron, now rests. In the wake of the noise, a thick, quiet blanket of smoke has settled over the rolling hills and the shallow valleys. It does not rise rapidly into the sky. Instead, it clings to the ground, a pale, shimmering mist that softens every harsh edge and blurs every sharp line. It is a beautiful, melancholic veil. It turns the silver grass into a sea of clouds, and it transforms the scattered, resting machines into soft, ghostly silhouettes. They are no longer terrifying beasts of war. Cloaked in the drifting haze, they look like ancient, sleeping stones, solitary islands lost in a quiet, gray tide. The smoke holds the scent of burnt earth and heated metal, but as the evening air cools, it is slowly replaced by the familiar, damp fragrance of the evening dew. Inside his machine, Pavel is watching the smoke drift lazily through the open hatch above him. The interior of his iron room is dim, lit only by the faint, pale light of the hazy sky. The air is entirely still. The deafening roar that had filled his ears for so long has vanished, replaced by a silence so absolute it almost feels like a physical weight pressing against his skin. He leans his head back against the cold steel, his breathing slow and shallow. He feels like a ghost himself, floating in this suspended, quiet space between the earth and the sky. He reaches his trembling hand into his heavy coat pocket, his fingers wrapping around the small, carved wooden bird Kolya had given him. The smooth, polished wood is wonderfully warm, having absorbed the heat of his own frightened heart throughout the long day. He gently traces the curve of its wings, a slow, grounding motion that reminds him he is still here. He is still flesh and blood. He is still breathing. Beside him, Kolya shifts in the shadows. The big man reaches out, his rough, calloused hands remarkably gentle as he brushes a thin layer of pale gray ash from Pavel's shoulder. Kolya's face is smeared with soot, his deep-set eyes reflecting the soft, muted light from above. He does not offer a wide, triumphant smile. He simply offers a quiet, profound nod of recognition. It is a look that says, "We have walked through the fire, and we are resting in the cool mist." Kolya reaches into his satchel and pulls out a small, slightly bruised apple. It is a miracle of a thing, entirely out of place in this world of iron and ash. He carefully breaks it in half, the crisp snap sounding impossibly loud in the quiet, and hands a piece to Pavel. Pavel takes the fruit, bringing it to his lips. The sharp, sweet taste of the apple cuts through the metallic taste in his mouth, a sudden, brilliant burst of life. It tastes of autumn orchards, of cool rain, of home. As he eats it, looking at his quiet, steadfast friend in the dim light, he realizes that the true ghosts in the smoke are not the shadows of the machines outside. The true ghosts are the boys they were yesterday, the innocent, untested souls they left behind in the grass. They have been changed, forged by the heavy weight of the day, but sitting here, sharing a broken apple in the quiet dark, they are still deeply, beautifully human. Miles away, resting upon its lonely hill, the solitary guardian is entirely enveloped in the drifting gray sea. The smoke swirls slowly around the long, heavy barrel and curls around the thick, sloped armor plates like a soft, woolen scarf. Johannes sits high in the commander's cupola, his head and shoulders rising just above the top hatch. He is completely still, a lone silhouette watching the fog move across the steppe. The chill of the evening has begun to seep through his uniform, but he welcomes the cold. It feels clean. It feels like a quiet absolution. He looks down into the valley, but he cannot see the 50 machines. He cannot see the hills or the birch groves. The world has been reduced to a radius of a few dozen yards, enclosed entirely by the gentle, shifting walls of the smoke. It is an incredibly isolating feeling, but also deeply peaceful. The vast, overwhelming scale of the world has been taken away, leaving him with only his own quiet thoughts. He closes his eyes and listens to the soft, rhythmic tink, tink, tink of his machine cooling in the mist. The sound transports him. He is no longer a commander wrapped in iron. He is standing in his quiet classroom in Bavaria, the school day finally over. He imagines clapping 2 chalkboard erasers together near the open window, watching the fine, pale chalk dust drift out into the afternoon sunlight, floating and swirling on the breeze just like the smoke around him now. He remembers the peaceful, satisfying feeling of a day's work completed, the quiet murmur of the empty room, and the comforting knowledge that he would soon be walking down the cobbled street toward his own front door. He opens his eyes and reaches into his breast pocket. He does not pull out the photograph of Clara and little Elise. He simply presses his hand flat against the fabric, feeling the shape of it over his heart. He knows they are there. He knows they are waiting for him. The smoke outside is thick, but the light of that memory burns so brightly within his chest that no fog could ever obscure it. He whispers a quiet, breathless word of thanks to the evening air. A gentle, fragile prayer of gratitude for the profound, simple miracle of the setting sun. History is so often shrouded in this kind of smoke. We look back through the years, trying to make out the shapes of the past, but the fog of time obscures the finer details. We see the grand movements, the massive silhouettes of the great machines, and the sweeping tides of conflict. But the most important stories, the most beautifully human moments, are often hidden deep within the haze. They are the secret, unseen operations of the human spirit, the sharing of an apple, the memory of chalk dust, the quiet prayers whispered into the evening mist. These hidden stories, these quiet ghosts in the smoke, are the true fabric of our shared past. They remind us that behind every grand historical event, there were ordinary people carrying the extraordinary weight of the world on their shoulders. Uncovering these hidden narratives requires patience, empathy, and a gentle hand. If you find a comforting peace in peering through the fog of time to discover these profound, untold stories, I want to warmly invite you to join our email newsletter. As a gentle welcome to our community, I would love to share a free ebook with you, titled The Shadow War, 5 Top Secret Operations That Shaped World War II. It explores the hidden courage and the quiet, unseen paths of history, much like the delicate human stories we are sharing tonight. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a gentle way to continue our journey together, ensuring that the quiet voices hidden in the smoke are never truly forgotten. Now, let us return to the quiet dark of the steppe, and watch as the evening slowly settles into the night. The wind, which had been entirely absent since the late afternoon, begins to stir once more. It is a very faint, very gentle breeze, arriving from the high mountains far to the north. It touches the tops of the silver grass with a soft, shushing sound, a quiet lullaby for the tired earth. Slowly, carefully, the wind begins to move the smoke. It does not blow it away all at once. It gently pulls the gray veil apart into long, translucent ribbons. The mist rises and thins, swirling in delicate, hypnotic patterns as it is carried off into the deepening night. As the smoke clears from the solitary hill, Johannes looks up. The sky is no longer a blank canvas of gray. The deep, velvet indigo of the night has returned, and with it, the stars. They appear one by one, like tiny, hopeful lamps being lit in a vast, dark hall. He watches the constellation of the Hunter slowly reveal itself above the horizon. The stars are so cold, so distant, yet they offer a profound, unshakable comfort. They are the exact same stars that are shining down on the climbing roses in his garden. They are the exact same stars his little girl might be looking at through her bedroom window. For a moment, the immense, terrifying distance between him and his home simply vanishes, bridged by the ancient, silver light. Down in the valley, the fog is lifting from the community of 50 machines. Pavel pulls his heavy woolen blanket tighter around his shoulders. He looks out through the open hatch, watching the last wisps of smoke drift past the cold iron barrel. He feels the cool, clean wind on his face, washing away the smell of the ash and leaving only the scent of the living earth. He feels a deep, heavy exhaustion pulling at his eyelids, a weariness so complete that his body feels entirely weightless. He leans his head against Kolya's broad shoulder. The big man does not move, offering his strength as a quiet pillow for his friend. Pavel closes his eyes, his hand still resting over his pocket, holding onto the wooden bird and the letter to his sister. He does not dream of the noise, or the fear, or the smoke. He dreams only of a warm kitchen, the scent of fragrant spices, and the soft, comforting sound of his mother's voice. The earth breathes out a long, slow sigh. The great iron machines, which had dominated the landscape with their terrible, roaring presence, are now nothing more than quiet shadows resting under the watchful eyes of the stars. The ghosts of the day have drifted away on the night wind, leaving behind only the gentle, enduring peace of the sleeping world. Let the cool night air wash over you. Let the gentle wind carry away your own worries, your own heavy thoughts, letting them drift away like smoke in the dark. The day is over. The striving is done. There is nothing left to do now but rest. Breathe in the quiet. Hold it in your chest, a soft, glowing ember of peace. And as you breathe out, let your body sink deeply into the comfort of the night. You are safe. You are watched over by the ancient, quiet stars. Let the silence of the steppe wrap around you, and allow yourself to drift slowly, gently, into a beautiful and dreamless sleep. Time does not stop for the weary, it simply softens its heavy step, learning to walk quietly in the dark. The deep, velvet night has fully embraced the vast, rolling expanse of the steppe. The world has been stripped of its sharp edges and bright colors, leaving behind only the gentle, sweeping curves of the hills painted in soft shades of charcoal, indigo, and silver. The silver grass, kissed by the heavy evening dew, bows silently beneath the weight of the dark. There is a profound, almost sacred stillness that rests upon the earth, a silence so complete and enveloping that it feels like a heavy, comforting blanket woven from the very fabric of the night. In this hushed and fragile hour, the great, heavy machines of men sit motionless in the shadows. They are no longer instruments of a terrible storm. Stripped of their roaring engines and their violent momentum, they have become nothing more than solitary islands of cooling iron resting quietly in an ocean of grass. And as the immense heat of the day slowly leaves the thick steel, the machines begin to speak in a new, softer voice. It is a slow, rhythmic, melodic tink, tink, tink. It is the sound of the metal contracting in the cool night air. But if you close your eyes and listen closely, allowing the rhythm to wash over you, it sounds like something else entirely. It sounds like the ticking of 1,000 hidden clocks. It is the quiet, methodical clockwork of survival. Survival is not always found in grand, sweeping gestures or moments of roaring defiance. More often, it is found in the quiet, repetitive rhythms of the human heart. It is found in the simple, mechanical routines we cling to when the world around us becomes too large and too frightening to understand. Inside the solitary, massive machine resting high upon its lonely hill, the air is thick with the scent of old leather and coal dust. Johannes sits perfectly still in the dim, amber-tinted shadows of the commander's seat. He is exhausted, a bone-deep weariness that makes his limbs feel as though they are made of lead. Yet, his mind is awake, anchored by a small, repetitive motion. In his rough, calloused hand, he holds a silver pocket watch. It is an old, beautiful thing, its casing worn smooth by years of being carried in his vest pocket back in the green, rolling valleys of Bavaria. He clicks the small latch, and the silver cover pops open with a soft, musical chime. In the faint, ghostly light filtering down through the open hatch, he cannot read the numbers on the delicate porcelain face. He does not need to. He simply brings the watch close to his ear, closing his eyes as he listens to the rapid, impossibly precise ticking of the tiny gears inside. Tick, 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 tick. It is a beautiful, ordered sound. It is the sound of a world that makes perfect sense. As he listens, Johannes lets the cramped, cold walls of his iron room fade away. He is transported back to the small, dusty shop of the old watchmaker in his hometown. He remembers standing there as a young boy, completely mesmerized by the hundreds of clocks ticking in perfect, chaotic harmony. He remembers the rich, comforting smell of brass polish, aged wood, and fine machine oil. He remembers the old watchmaker, a kind man with thick spectacles, explaining how every tiny wheel, every microscopic spring, had a specific, vital purpose. Johannes slowly reaches up with his thumb and forefinger and begins to wind the small, grooved knob at the top of his watch. Click. 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 The sound is incredibly satisfying. With every gentle turn, he is not just winding a spring, he is winding the resilience of his own soul. He is preserving a tiny, perfect piece of the peaceful world he left behind. He lowers the watch and looks down at his sleeping crew. The young radio operator, the gunner, the driver, they are all curled into the awkward, cramped spaces of the metal floor, wrapped tightly in their thin woolen blankets. Their chests rise and fall in a slow, steady rhythm. They are his clockwork now. They are the fragile, beating gears that keep his heart turning. He listens to their breathing, syncing his own breath to theirs. In and out. In and out. It is the most beautiful, comforting machinery in the world, and he vows quietly to the dark that he will do everything in his power to keep it running until the dawn. Miles away, across the vast, shadowed valley, the 50 machines sit in quiet congregation. They are a slumbering herd of iron, their heavy tracks sunk deep into the damp, cool earth. The mist has begun to roll in from the low places, curling around the sloped armor like soft, ghostly fingers. Inside the belly of his own machine, Pavel is awake. He is sitting on the cold metal floor, his knees pulled tightly to his chest, a rough woolen blanket draped over his trembling shoulders. The fear of the day has receded, leaving behind a hollow, echoing emptiness in his chest. He feels untethered, drifting in the dark, desperate for something to hold on to. He turns his head and looks at Kolya. The big, quiet man is sitting beside him, illuminated only by the faint, starlight glow slipping through the narrow vision slits. Kolya is not sleeping. He is completely absorbed in a slow, meticulous task. In his massive, scarred hands that have hauled heavy steel and gripped steering levers with bone-crushing force, he holds a small, delicate needle and a length of thick, dark thread. Kolya is mending a long tear in the sleeve of his heavy winter coat. Pavel watches him, utterly captivated. It is such a profoundly mundane, domestic act, completely out of place in the center of an iron war machine. But there is a breathtaking beauty in it. Kolya's movements are slow, deliberate, and deeply rhythmic. He pushes the needle through the thick wool. He pulls the thread tight with a soft, sliding whisper. He pauses, aligns the frayed edges of the fabric, and pushes the needle through again. Push. Pull. a line. It is a gentle, mechanical rhythm. It is Kolya's own clockwork of survival. Pavel finds his breathing slowing down, matching the steady, repetitive motion of Kolya's hands. The simple act of watching a friend mend a torn sleeve becomes a profound anchor in the dark. It is a reminder that even when the world is torn apart, there are still hands willing to patiently stitch it back together. It is a reminder of warm hearths, of mothers sewing by lamplight, of a life built on care and quiet maintenance. Kolya does not look up from his work, but he senses Pavel watching him. Without missing a stitch, he begins to hum. It is a low, vibrating hum, a mournful, beautiful folk melody from his village. The song has no words, only a slow, rolling rhythm that vibrates in Kolya's deep chest and fills the cramped, cold room with a sense of incredible warmth. Pavel closes his eyes, letting the needles whisper and the steady hum wrap around him like a second blanket. The hollow emptiness in his chest begins to fill with a quiet, resilient peace. He presses his hand over his pocket, feeling the small, carved wooden bird Kolya had given him, and the folded letter to his little sister. He is safe. He is held within the gentle clockwork of Kolya's care. There is a deep, enduring magic in these small acts of preservation. Whether it is the winding of a grandfather's pocket watch or the careful, patient stitching of a frayed woolen sleeve, these are the ways we keep our humanity intact. We mend, we wind, we maintain the fragile, beautiful things we love, refusing to let them unravel in the dark. Preserving the delicate stories of the past is very much the same. It requires a gentle hand, a patient heart, and a dedication to stitching together the forgotten, frayed edges of history. We do this so that the quiet heroism of men like Johannes, Pavel, and Kolya is never lost to the wind. If you find a deep, restful comfort in listening to these gentle narratives and helping us maintain the quiet clockwork of these forgotten memories, I want to warmly invite you to visit our Ko-Fi tip jar. It is a simple, caring space where you can offer a small gesture of support, perhaps the equivalent of buying us a warm cup of coffee as we work through the night to keep these stories alive. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. Your support is the thread that helps us mend the fabric of the past, ensuring these gentle voices continue to echo into the future. Now, let us return to the step and surrender to the soothing rhythm of the night. The hours stretch out, long, slow, and deeply peaceful. The wind continues its gentle journey across the plains, whispering through the tall, silver grass and brushing against the cooling iron of the resting machines. It is a soft, shushing sound, a lullaby whispered by the earth itself. Above, the sky is a vast, breathtaking theater of stars. Without the interference of city lights or the smoke of the day, the Milky Way reveals itself in all its staggering glory, a brilliant, sprawling river of crushed diamonds spilled across the deepest velvet indigo. The stars do not simply hang in the sky, they move. They travel in a grand, imperceptible arc across the heavens, guided by the ancient, silent clockwork of the cosmos. Johannes sits in his solitary machine, leaning his head back against the cold steel, gazing up through the open hatch at the turning stars. He feels incredibly small, a tiny speck of life resting upon a vast, dark earth. But he does not feel insignificant. He feels safely held within the grand mechanics of the universe. The stars will turn. The earth will spin. The sun will rise again. It is a promise written in the heavens, a reliable, beautiful certainty that brings a profound ease to his weary mind. Down in the valley, Pavel has finally drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep. His head rests heavily against Kolya's broad shoulder. Kolya has finished his mending. He bites the thick thread, ties off the end with a practiced knot, and carefully smooths the repaired wool over his knee. He rests his scarred hand gently on top of Pavel's head, a silent, fiercely protective guardian watching over the boy's slumber. Kolya looks out through the narrow glass slit, watching the exact same stars turning above the hills. He breathes in the cool, damp night air, his chest rising and falling in perfect harmony with the sleeping boy beside him. The clockwork of survival requires nothing more from them tonight. They do not need to be brave. They do not need to be strong. They only need to be present. They only need to let the night pass, second by second, breath by breath. Listen to the quiet of the step. Listen to the slow, steady rhythm of your own heart. It is the most beautiful clockwork ever created. It beats with resilience, with hope, and with the quiet, enduring capacity for love. Let the worries of the day slip away, unraveling like a loose thread in the dark. There is nothing you need to mend right now. There is nothing you need to win. The universe is turning exactly as it should, and you are safely, warmly held within it. Breathe in the cool, peaceful air of the night. Feel your muscles soften, your mind quiet, and your heavy eyelids begin to close. Let the gentle, whispered lullaby of the wind and the slow, turning stars carry you away. Rest now, in the deep, protective embrace of the dark, and allow yourself to drift softly, completely, into a beautiful and healing sleep. There is a silence so profound it does not just fill the air, it settles softly into the very marrow of your bones. The great, trembling tremor of the earth has finally, completely ceased. The long, unimaginable trial of the day, with its roaring engines and its heavy, suffocating shadows, has melted away into the deep and forgiving ocean of the night. The vast expanse of the steppe, which had been so fiercely disrupted, is now reclaiming its ancient, undisturbed peace. The dust that had been thrown high into the twilight sky by the heavy tracks of the machines has slowly, gently drifted back down to the soil, coating the silver grass and the resting iron in a fine, powdery veil of pale gray. When the last engine is finally turned off, the absence of noise is absolute. It is a stunning, breathtaking quiet. It rings in the ears for a moment, a sudden vacuum where the thunder used to be, before it slowly transforms into something incredibly soothing. It is the silence of a world that has been allowed to stop holding its breath. The earth exhales a long, cool, and fragrant sigh, releasing the scent of crushed weeds, damp soil, and the sharp, metallic tang of cooling iron into the crisp midnight air. High above the rolling hills and the shallow, shadowed valleys, the sky has cleared. The thick, hazy clouds of the evening have been swept away by a high, unseen wind, leaving behind a vast, uninterrupted canopy of the deepest, richest indigo. The stars have emerged in their millions, a sprawling, magnificent river of crushed silver stretching from one horizon to the other. They look down upon the quiet earth with an ancient, indifferent serenity. They do not care about the struggles of men or the borders drawn upon the grass. They only offer their cold, beautiful light, a gentle blanket of starlight wrapping around the sleeping world. Resting alone upon its gentle hill, bathed in the pale light of the Milky Way, the solitary machine sits entirely motionless. It is no longer a guardian or a fortress. It is simply a tired, heavy shell of iron, slowly surrendering its heat to the night. Inside the dim, confined belly of this iron room, Johannes sits with his eyes closed, his head resting back against the cold, unyielding steel. He is not sleeping. He is simply floating in the exquisite, weightless relief of the silence. Every muscle in his body, which had been pulled as tight as a coiled spring for so many hours, is slowly, agonizingly beginning to unspool. He feels a deep, throbbing ache in his shoulders and his hands, but it is a welcome pain. It is the beautiful, undeniable ache of being alive. He slowly opens his eyes. The interior of the machine is plunged into deep shadow, illuminated only by the faint, ghostly starlight filtering down through the glass blocks of the commander's cupola. He listens to the quiet around him. The silence here is not empty, it is filled with the soft, steady, and incredibly precious sound of breathing. His young crew, the boys he has shepherded through the dark, are fast asleep. They are slumped in their seats or curled upon the cold metal floor, completely dead to the world, having finally succumbed to a bone-deep exhaustion that overrides even the freezing air. Johannes listens to the rise and fall of their chests. It is the most beautiful music he has ever heard. It is the gentle, rhythmic song of survival. He moves slowly, deliberately, not wanting to disturb the quiet. His thick, heavy gloves have been discarded on the floor. With bare, trembling fingers, he reaches into the inner pocket of his heavy wool tunic. He draws out the small, worn photograph of Clara and little Elise. He cannot see their faces in the dark, but he traces the familiar, frayed edges of the paper with his thumb. He presses the image against his lips, holding it there for a long, quiet moment. He does not whisper a prayer of victory. He whispers a prayer of profound, overwhelming gratitude. I am coming back to the garden, he tells them silently in the dark. I am coming back to the climbing roses. Miles away, resting in the deep, protective shadows of the valley, the great community of 50 machines has also fallen completely silent. They sit shoulder to shoulder, a slumbering herd of iron resting upon the frost-covered grass. The cooling metal of their hulls ticks softly in the night, a gentle, rhythmic sound like a grandfather clock keeping time in a quiet, empty house. Inside his own cramped enclosure, Pavel is entirely enveloped in the dark. The silence falling over his machine is so heavy it almost feels like a physical blanket. He is sitting on the floor, his back pressed tightly against the warm metal partition of the engine compartment. The heat is slowly fading, but for now, it offers a small, comforting sanctuary against the biting chill of the night air. Pavel is not alone. Kolya is sitting right beside him, so close that their shoulders are touching. The big man is leaning forward, his massive arms resting on his knees, his chin tucked down into his chest. He is awake, his eyes open, staring softly into the blackness. Pavel reaches out, his hand finding the rough, coarse wool of Kolya's coat sleeve. He grips the fabric tightly, a desperate, silent need for physical connection. He needs to know that he has not drifted away into the mist, that he is still tethered to the earth and to another human soul. Kolya does not pull away. Instead, he slowly turns his head and covers Pavel's small, trembling hand with his own massive, scarred palm. The warmth of Kolya's hand is incredible. It is a slow, steady heat that seeps into Pavel's freezing fingers, traveling up his arm and settling deep within his chest. It chases away the lingering shadows of fear. It chases away the terrible, isolating loneliness of the iron room. In this absolute silence, that simple, gentle touch says everything that words could never possibly express. It says, we are still here. We are breathing. We are together. With his free hand, Pavel reaches into his pocket. He finds the small, carved wooden bird. He strokes its smooth, polished wings, feeling the reassuring shape of the wood. Right beside it, resting gently over his heart, is the folded paper of the letter he wrote to his little sister. He closes his eyes and pictures her bright, laughing face. He pictures the stray dog they used to feed, the yellow butterfly resting on the steel, the sweet smell of the dust in the morning light. These are the things that matter. When the engines finally stop, when the dust settles and the silence falls, the grand, sweeping mechanics of the world simply fade away. All that remains is the profound, beautiful truth of the human heart. It is the love we carry in our pockets. It is the warmth of a friend's hand in the dark. It is the memory of a quiet classroom in Bavaria, and the scent of spice in a sunlit kitchen. These delicate fragments of history, these quiet echoes of the human soul, are so incredibly precious. They remind us that behind the heavy armor and the sweeping tides of the past, there were only people. Ordinary, beautiful people, loving and fearing and hoping with the exact same intensity that we do today. It is why we cherish the physical reminders of those who came before us. If you feel a gentle desire to hold a piece of this history in your own hands, to connect with the profound, tangible realities of the past, I want to share a caring recommendation with you. Through our Amazon affiliate links, you can explore a beautifully curated selection of World War II memorabilia, physical touchstones from a time that asked so much of ordinary people. We also have a link to the incredible film Midway on Prime, a movie that masterfully captures the vast, emotional human stories behind the grand tapestry of this era. Exploring these pieces is a wonderful way to honor these fragile memories and keep their quiet whispers alive. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is simply a gentle way to reach across time, safely and with an open heart. Now, let us return to the deep, absolute peace of the steppe. The hours of the night drift by, slow and unhurried. The frost begins to gather on the silent machines, delicate, beautiful crystals of ice blooming across the dark painted steel, turning the iron beasts into shimmering, silver ghosts under the starlight. The wind, which had been sleeping since the twilight, begins to stir once more. It is a very faint, very gentle breeze, arriving from the high, unseen mountains far away. It sweeps across the silver grass with a soft, shushing sound, a quiet, mournful lullaby for the tired earth. It blows over the solitary guardian on its hill, whistling softly through the open hatches. It blows over the 50 resting machines in the valley, carrying the scent of the damp earth and the cold frost. In the solitary machine, Johannes has finally allowed his head to fall forward. His breathing has deepened, joining the slow, rhythmic chorus of his sleeping crew. The photograph of Clara and Elise is safely tucked back over his heart. He is no longer a commander. He is just a father, dreaming of a mountain train and the sound of his daughter's laughter echoing through the thin, crisp air. In the valley, Pavel's grip on Kolya's sleeve has finally relaxed. His head is resting heavily against the big man's shoulder, his face softened into an expression of total, absolute peace. The wooden bird is held loosely in his palm, a silent charm against the dark. Kolya continues his quiet, steadfast watch, his eyes heavy but his spirit unbroken, guarding the sleep of the boy who has become his brother in the shadows. The silence falling over the steppe is not a silence of emptiness. It is a silence of profound, enduring resilience. It is the quiet grace of ordinary souls who have walked through the fire and emerged back into the cool, forgiving night. Let this profound silence wrap around you now. Let the deep, undisturbed peace of the sleeping earth seep into your own tired bones. The struggles of your own day are over. The noise, the rush, the heavy expectations, let them all fall away, drifting down like dust settling on the silver grass. There is nothing you need to carry into the dark. There is nothing you need to hold on to, except the quiet, beautiful rhythm of your own breathing. Feel the air moving slowly in, filling you with calm. Feel the air moving slowly out, carrying away your worries and your fears. You are safe. You are held in the gentle, turning hands of the night. The stars are watching over the world, an ancient, unwavering light in the dark. Let their silver glow soothe your mind. Let the whispered lullaby of the wind across the steppe sing you into rest. Close your eyes. Surrender to the soft, heavy blanket of the silence. Let yourself drift away, slowly, peacefully, and completely, into a deep, healing, and beautiful sleep. Good night. Even when the world tries to paint us all in the same dark ash, the true, gentle shape of a soul will always find a way to shine through. The great, roaring winds that swept across the vast and endless ocean of the steppe have finally settled into a soft, breathless calm. We have passed through the trembling of the earth, we have watched the shadows dance, and we have listened to the quiet clockwork of the night. Now, the morning has arrived once more, but it does not bring the brilliant, piercing gold of the days before. Instead, it offers a soft, muted, and incredibly gentle light, filtering down through a high, thin canopy of pale gray clouds. It is a quiet, contemplative morning, a dawn that seems to understand the profound need for stillness. As this soft light slowly fills the wide, rolling valleys, it reveals a world that has been covered in a delicate, powdery veil. It is not frost this time, nor is it the heavy, shimmering dew of the early spring. It is the fine, dark dust of the struggle. It is the soot. It has drifted down from the twilight sky like a silent, dark snow, settling evenly and impartially over the silver grass, the ancient birch trees, and the silent, cooling machines of iron. It coats everything in the exact same shade of charcoal and slate. It mutes the bright greens of the weeds and dulls the heavy, painted steel of the hulls. It is the residue of the fire, the physical memory of the heat, left behind to remind the earth of what has passed. But in the quiet, cool air of this new morning, the soot does not feel terrifying. It feels like a quiet blanket, a gentle equalizer that covers the scars of the land and the machinery of men in one unified, peaceful gray. Inside the solitary machine, resting upon its lonely, quiet hill, the air is thick with the scent of this dark dust. It smells of burnt oil, exhausted iron, and the deep, rich scent of the disturbed earth. Johannes opens his tired, heavy eyes to the pale light slipping through his narrow vision slits. He does not move immediately. He simply sits in the commander's seat, feeling the cold, unyielding metal beneath him, and listens to the slow, steady breathing of the young boys curled up on the floor. He slowly raises his hands, bringing them up to the faint light. They are completely black, coated in a thick, greasy layer of soot and engine oil. The deep, familiar lines of his palms, the calluses he earned from years of holding pieces of white chalk against a slate board in his beautiful Bavarian classroom, are entirely obscured. He turns his hands over, feeling a strange, quiet sorrow. He is a teacher. He is a man who loves the smell of fresh paper, the bright, ringing laughter of children, and the soft, blooming petals of the climbing roses in his garden. Yet here, in this frozen moment, his hands look like the hands of a phantom, shaped entirely by the dark ash of the steppe. He reaches for a small, frayed rag that sits beside his seat. It is old and stiff, but it is all he has. He begins to slowly, methodically wipe the soot from his hands. It is a deliberate, rhythmic motion. Rub, fold, rub, fold. He is not just cleaning away the dirt, he is trying to uncover the man he used to be. He is trying to scrub away the shadows of the long, terrible night. He looks down into the dim, cramped belly of the machine. The young radio operator is slowly waking up. The boy's face is a mask of dark gray soot, making his bright, youthful eyes stand out with startling, almost heartbreaking clarity. He looks up at Johannes, blinking sleepily, looking so incredibly small and vulnerable wrapped in his rough woolen blanket. Johannes does not offer a booming command. He does not speak of the horizon or the iron. He simply leans down, holding the frayed rag in his hand. With an immense, fatherly tenderness, he reaches out and gently touches the rag to the boy's cheek. The boy stays perfectly still, his eyes wide and trusting, as Johannes slowly, carefully wipes the dark ash away from his skin. With every gentle stroke, the soot is pulled away, revealing the soft, pale, unbroken skin beneath. He wipes the forehead, the bridge of the nose, the line of the jaw. And as the dark mask is slowly lifted, the soldier disappears, and the child returns. Johannes looks at the boy's clean face in the pale morning light, and he feels a profound, overwhelming wave of love. He is not looking at an instrument of war. He is looking at a son. He is looking at a boy who belongs in a moving picture theater, holding the hand of a girl, riding a motor scooter beneath the summer stars. Johannes smiles, a soft, crinkling smile that reaches all the way to his tired eyes. He reaches into his pocket and touches the photograph of Clara and Elise. He does not need to look at it to know that their faces, too, are clean and bright, waiting for him in the sun. He has preserved the humanity of this boy in the dark, and in doing so, he has preserved his own. Miles away, across the vast, sweeping curve of the valley, the community of 50 machines sits quietly in the morning mist. The soot has settled heavily upon them as well, turning the dark green armor into a muted, dusty slate. The wind rustles through the grass, blowing tiny clouds of the dark powder into the cool air, where they drift and vanish like ghosts. Pavel is sitting on the edge of the open hatch, his legs dangling into the dim interior of his machine. He is holding a small, dented tin cup filled with a meager ration of cold water. He stares down into the cup, watching his own reflection in the dark, still surface. He almost does not recognize the face looking back at him. It is a face completely covered in the soot of the steppe, the dark grease emphasizing the hollows of his cheeks and the profound, bone-deep exhaustion in his eyes. He feels a sudden, desperate urge to be clean. He wants to wash away the smell of the smoke, the memory of the noise, the heavy, suffocating weight of the iron. He cups a small amount of the freezing water in his hands and splashes it over his face. The cold is a shocking, brilliant burst of sensation. It stings his skin, waking him up, pulling him back to the vibrant, beating reality of life. He rubs his hands over his cheeks, his forehead, his eyes, letting the water mix with the soot and run through his fingers like dark tears. Beside him, Collier reaches out with a clean piece of rough canvas. The big, quiet man does not say a word. He simply offers the cloth, his scarred face holding an expression of infinite, enduring patience. Pavel takes the canvas and dries his face, scrubbing away the last remnants of the dark mask. When he lowers the cloth, he takes a deep, trembling breath of the cool morning air. He looks at Collier, and Collier looks back. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, they are truly seeing each other. Without the obscuring layer of the ash, Pavel can see the deep, gentle kindness etched into the corners of Collier's eyes. He can see the quiet resilience, the unshakable strength of a man who has become his anchor in the storm. And Collier, looking at Pavel, sees the vibrant, hopeful light of a young man who still has a whole, beautiful life ahead of him. Pavel reaches beneath his heavy coat, his clean fingers finding the inner pocket. He gently pulls out the letter he wrote to his little sister. He holds the rough brown paper up to the pale light. There, on the very edge of the page, right next to the clumsy, beautiful drawing of the smiling sun, is a single, dark smudge of soot. It must have transferred from his fingers during the long, terrifying night. He stares at the dark mark, a tiny blemish on the fragile paper. But instead of feeling sorrow, he feels a profound sense of grace. This letter, with its smudged edge and its chewed pencil lines, is the most truthful, beautiful thing he has ever created. It is proof that he held on to his love even when the world was covered in ash. He carefully folds the paper and tucks it safely away, his heart feeling lighter than it has in days. When you look back through the long, heavy corridors of time, history itself often looks like a landscape covered in this very same soot. The grand narratives, the sweeping maps, and the loud, roaring stories of nations tend to obscure the individual. They paint over the delicate, fragile reality of the human face, reducing beautiful, complex lives to mere statistics and dates. We so easily forget the tired eyes, the smudge of grease on a young man's cheek, the gentle, reassuring smile hidden beneath the exhaustion. We lose the small, quiet moments of grace in the vast, gray ash of the past. But sometimes, the fog lifts just enough for us to see them clearly. There is something incredibly moving, something deeply and profoundly sacred about looking into the true, unfiltered face of someone who walked through these shadows. If you find a quiet comfort in uncovering these hidden truths and gently brushing away the ash of time to see the real, beautiful humanity underneath, I want to warmly invite you to visit our Gumroad store. There, we have carefully gathered a collection of unseen, raw images and media of the war, fragile, fleeting moments captured on film, preserving the real, unposed faces of those who endured. It is a quiet space to reflect, to honor, and to look history softly in the eyes. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. Thank you for walking this gentle, respectful path of remembrance with me. Now, let us return to the quiet morning on the steppe, and watch as the world slowly begins to breathe again. The pale gray clouds above begin to part, just a fraction, allowing a single, brilliant ray of golden sunlight to pierce through the overcast sky. The beam of light falls directly onto the valley, illuminating the silver grass and casting long, soft shadows behind the resting machines. The warmth of the sun is a physical blessing. It touches the cold, damp earth, coaxing a faint, sweet smell of green life from the soil. The wind picks up, a steady, gentle breeze that sweeps across the plains. It whispers over the hulls of the iron machines, and slowly, surely, it begins to lift the dark soot away. Johannes sits in his open hatch, turning his clean, weathered face up to the warmth of the sun. He closes his eyes, letting the golden light soak into his tired skin. The wind brushes through his graying hair, carrying away the smell of the smoke and the memory of the fire. He is just a man again. A man sitting in the quiet morning, dreaming of a mountain train, holding the invisible hand of his little girl. Down in the valley, Pavel and Kolya sit together in the warming light. The wind lifts the fine, dark dust from their heavy coats, carrying it away into the vast, empty sky. Pavel reaches into his pocket and touches the smooth, carved wings of the wooden bird. He smiles, a genuine, beautiful smile that crinkles the corners of his eyes. Kolya reaches over and rests his massive hand gently on Pavel's shoulder, a silent, comforting anchor in the beautiful, waking world. They have all worn the exact same mask of ash. They have all breathed the same heavy smoke and listened to the same terrifying thunder. But beneath the soot, beneath the uniform and the iron, they share the exact same human soul. They are bound together not by the conflict of the world, but by the quiet, enduring grace of their own humanity. Let the warmth of this morning sun settle over you now. Let the gentle wind blow away the dark, heavy ash of your own worries, your own exhaustion, your own quiet fears. You do not need to carry the soot of yesterday into the light of today. Breathe in the cool, clean air. Feel the tension leaving your jaw, your shoulders, your hands. The masks we wear for the world can be washed away, leaving only the soft, true, and beautiful shape of who we really are. You are safe in this quiet place. You are held in the gentle light of the morning. Close your eyes, let the soft, whispering wind sing you a lullaby of peace, and allow yourself to drift slowly, calmly, and completely into a deep, restful, and healing sleep. Good night. Every road, no matter how long, broken, or weary, eventually leads back to the quiet sanctuary of the heart. The great, open expanse of the steppe has finally swallowed the heavy echoes of the iron. The storm has passed, and the vast, rolling ocean of silver grass has reclaimed its ancient, undisturbed silence. The heavy machines that once trembled with fierce, mechanical life now sit completely still, their engines cold, their thick steel hulls beginning the slow, patient process of surrendering to the earth. They are empty now. They are nothing more than hollow monuments left behind in the dust, while the true, beating heart of this history moves slowly, quietly, away. It is late afternoon, and the light is pouring across the plains like liquid honey, thick and warm and incredibly soft. It casts long, gentle shadows behind the men who are walking. This is not a march of grand armies or sweeping maneuvers. There are no straight lines, no roaring commands, no rigid formations. This is simply the slow, beautiful, and deeply human movement of weary souls turning their faces toward home. Johannes walks at the back of a small, quiet group. His heavy boots, scuffed and gray with the fine powder of the dry earth, find a steady, rhythmic cadence on the dirt path. Crunch, crunch, crunch. It is a slow, methodical sound, a gentle heartbeat vibrating through the soles of his feet. He looks down at his boots, watching the dust kick up with every step. With every footfall, he feels a tiny fraction of the immense, crushing weight he has carried for so long simply fall away, left behind in the dirt. He stops for a moment, letting his young crew walk a few paces ahead. He turns back to look at the lone hill in the distance. He can just barely make out the dark silhouette of the solitary machine he commanded, resting peacefully under the vast, pale blue sky. He raises his rough, calloused hand, the hand of a schoolteacher, and offers a small, silent wave. It is a gesture of quiet gratitude to the iron shell that kept his boys safe, a final farewell to the dark, freezing nights and the terrifying dawn. He turns his back to the hill, turning his back on the war, and begins to walk again. He watches the young men walking ahead of him. The radio operator is limping slightly, leaning on the shoulder of the gunner. They are leaning on each other, a brotherhood forged in the absolute dark, now moving together into the light. Johannes reaches into his deep pockets and finds a small, crushed square of rationed chocolate he had been saving for days. He steps forward, tapping the radio operator gently on the shoulder, and presses the chocolate into the boy's dusty palm. The boy stops, looking at the small, sweet treasure, and then looks up at Johannes. A slow, brilliant, and completely unburdened smile breaks across his soot-stained face. He breaks the tiny square in half, offering a piece to the gunner, and they eat it slowly, savoring the rich, dark sweetness. It is a tiny, perfect moment of communion on the dusty road. Johannes smiles, his heart feeling incredibly full. He is not bringing soldiers back from the edge of the world, he is bringing sons back to their mothers. As he walks, Johannes lets his mind drift far, far ahead of his tired body. He is no longer walking on the dry, endless steppe. In his mind, he is walking up the steep, winding, cobblestone street of his beautiful Bavarian village. He can hear the distant, musical chiming of the church bells ringing out the evening hour. He can smell the crisp, cool air rolling down from the high, snow-capped peaks. He imagines standing before the wooden gate of his home. He imagines pushing it open, hearing the familiar, comforting creak of the iron hinges. He pictures Clara sitting on the porch, under the heavy, fragrant blooms of the climbing roses. He imagines the exact moment she looks up and sees him. He pictures little Elise, wearing her white dress, dropping her toys in the grass and running toward him, her bright laughter ringing out like a beautiful, silver bell. He reaches into his breast tunic, pressing his hand flat against the photograph hidden inside. He feels an overwhelming surge of strength flow into his weary legs. Every step is bringing him closer to that gate. Every step is a quiet, whispered promise, I am coming home. Miles away, on another dusty, winding path cutting through the silver grass, Pavel is also walking. The afternoon sun is warm on his face, a gentle, healing touch that slowly melts away the lingering chill of the iron room. He is walking beside Kolya. The big man's stride is long and even, a steady, rolling gait that seems to consume the miles without effort. Kolya's massive shoulders are relaxed, the terrible, heavy tension of their long vigil finally unspooled. Pavel reaches into his heavy coat pocket. His fingers wrap around the small, carved wooden bird Kolya had given him. It has been his talisman, his anchor, his tiny piece of grace in the dark. He traces the smooth, polished wings, feeling a deep, profound wave of gratitude. Beside the bird rests the folded piece of rough brown paper, the letter to his little sister. He had written it in the dust, surrounded by fear, promising he would return. Now, as he walks, he realizes he will not need to send it. He will carry it all the way back. He imagines the exact moment he will kneel down in the dust of their courtyard, pulling the crumpled paper from his pocket and handing it directly into her small, eager hands. He imagines watching her eyes widen as she sees the clumsy, beautiful drawing of the smiling sun at the bottom of the page. Pavel closes his eyes for a moment as he walks, letting the rhythm of his footsteps carry his thoughts back to the village he misses with an intensity that physically aches. He pictures the wide, familiar fields surrounding his home. He can almost hear the joyous, booming voice of his older brother calling out to him, running down the dirt lane to meet him, ready to throw a heavy arm around his shoulders. He imagines the two of them working side by side again, sharing the quiet, honest labor of the land, troubleshooting the old machinery together in the fading summer light. He thinks of the grand, bustling, chaotic reunions of his family. He imagines a large group of cousins, a tight-knit circle of 8 or so, sitting around a massive wooden table under the spring sky, laughing loudly, sharing stories, and planning long, beautiful journeys to the high, Cool mountains, simply because they are free to travel, free to breathe, free to be together. But above all, Pavel imagines the warm, rich scent drifting from the kitchen window. It is the earthy, golden aroma of his mother's carefully ground spices. He imagines the vibrant, warm hue of turmeric and the deep, comforting scent of cumin wrapping around him like a physical embrace as he steps through the front door. He wants nothing more than to sit quietly at her table, to see her face at peace, and to know that her world is safe and whole once more. These beautiful, deeply personal dreams are the invisible threads that pull these weary men across the vast expanse of the earth. History books will tell you that the movements of the world are driven by grand ideologies, by massive shifts in power, by the cold, calculated lines drawn upon maps. But out here, on the dusty roads winding through the silver grass, you can see the profound, simple truth. The world is moved entirely by the human heart. It is moved by the desire to see a wooden gate open. It is moved by the scent of a mother's kitchen. It is moved by the desperate, beautiful need to return to the people we love. Preserving these incredibly fragile, deeply human stories is a gentle, necessary work. It is how we honor the incredible distances these ordinary men walked, both in the world and within their own souls. If you find a deep, restful comfort in listening to these gentle narratives and walking quietly alongside these forgotten voices, I want to warmly invite you to join our Patreon page. It is a quiet, welcoming sanctuary where we share free podcasts and soothing deep dives into the hidden, tender corners of our shared past. We take the time to sit with these stories, to honor the quiet resilience of the human spirit, and to ensure these gentle echoes are never lost to the wind. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is simply a peaceful way for us to continue this journey together, safely and with an open heart. Now, let us return to the long, quiet path, as the afternoon begins to soften into the early evening. The golden light of the sun slowly deepens into a rich, heavy amber. The shadows stretch longer, reaching out across the dry earth like seeking fingers. The air begins to cool, carrying the fresh, clean scent of the approaching night. The wind whispers through the tall weeds, a soft, shushing sound that seems to encourage the tired travelers forward. Collier reaches into his satchel as they walk. He pulls out a small, slightly bruised apple he has saved, polishing it gently against the rough wool of his coat. He takes a small knife, cuts the apple perfectly in half, and hands a piece to Pavel. Pavel takes it, the crisp, sweet taste bursting in his mouth, washing away the dust of the road. He looks at Kolya, at the deep, gentle kindness etched into the scars on his face. They do not need to speak. They simply walk side by side, sharing the fruit, sharing the silence, sharing the profound, miraculous weight of survival. They are no longer soldiers bound by the iron machinery of the steppe. They are brothers of the road, walking toward the setting sun. As the amber light begins to fade, bruising into the deep violets and indigos of the twilight, the stars begin to emerge. They appear one by one, tiny, brilliant lamps lighting the way across the dark ceiling of the world. Johannes looks up from the path, finding the familiar, comforting shape of the great constellations. He sees the bear, faithfully pointing the way north. He feels a deep, abiding comfort in the ancient, unchanging clockwork of the heavens. The stars have watched over this long march for thousands of years. They watched over the ancients, they are watching over him, and they will watch over his little girl as she grows. The rhythm of their boots continues. Crunch, crunch, crunch. It is a slow, enduring lullaby. The exhaustion in their limbs is heavy, pulling them toward the earth, but their spirits are incredibly, beautifully light. They have left the shadows behind. They are carrying only their love, their memories, and the quiet, enduring grace of their own humanity. Let the slow, steady rhythm of their footsteps soothe your own tired mind. Let the long, dusty road carry away the heavy burdens of your day. You do not need to march anymore. You do not need to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Imagine the warm, golden light of the afternoon sun slowly fading behind your closed eyelids. Imagine the cool, clean evening wind brushing softly across your forehead, bringing a profound, deep sense of peace. The struggles are behind you. The iron is quiet. The storm has passed. You are on your own gentle journey toward rest. Feel the comforting, familiar embrace of your own sanctuary wrapping around you, as safe and warm as a mother's kitchen, as peaceful as a garden of climbing roses under the summer stars. Breathe in the quiet of the night. Hold the stillness in your heart. And as you exhale, let your body sink deeply, heavily, and completely into the soft, waiting comfort of your bed. The long march is over. You are perfectly safe. Let the gentle, whispered lullaby of the peaceful earth carry you away, drifting slowly, softly, into a beautiful, healing, and dreamless sleep. Good night. Time is a gentle thief, slowly stealing the sharpness of iron only to return it to the soft, enduring embrace of the earth. Decades have passed since the great, heavy tremor of the machine shook the vast and endless ocean of the steppe. The long, terrifying night, with its dancing shadows and its biting frost, has faded into the deep and distant corridors of history. The sun has risen and set over these rolling hills thousands upon thousands of times since that quiet breath before the dawn. It has baked the soil in the height of the summer, and the heavy, silent snows of winter have blanketed the valleys in absolute, pristine white. The seasons have turned, a slow, majestic, and entirely peaceful clockwork, washing away the fine, dark soot and healing the deep scars left in the silver grass. The earth does not hold on to the anger of men. It only knows how to grow, how to mend, and how to patiently reclaim whatever is left behind on its surface. Scattered across the gentle dips and rises of the landscape, the empty hulls of the machine still rest. They have not moved a single inch since the day the engines finally fell silent. But they are no longer the terrifying, unyielding beasts of dark steel and harsh, painted edges. They have been completely transformed by the slow, quiet miracle of rust. It is a beautiful, melancholic blooming. The rust does not consume the metal with the roaring heat of a fire. It is a slow, creeping oxidation, a patient unwriting of the iron. It has turned the dark green and gray armor into a breathtaking canvas of deep, warm earth tones. There are rich, burnt siennas, vibrant, earthy oranges, and soft, velvety browns that perfectly match the color of the autumn soil. The sharp, terrifying angles of the turrets have been softened, the edges flaking away like dry autumn leaves crumbling in the palm of a hand. The silver grass has grown incredibly tall, weaving its delicate, pale stems through the massive, frozen links of the iron tracks. Wildflowers, tiny, brilliant splashes of pale violet, bright yellow, and delicate white, have found purchase in the empty crevices of the armor. They push their way through the rusted grills and bloom boldly from the open, empty hatches, turning the forgotten monuments of conflict into quiet, living gardens. In the gentle warmth of the spring, small birds build their intricate, woven nests deep inside the hollow, drooping barrels, raising their fragile young in the very spaces that once held so much fear. The physical machines are dissolving, returning slowly to the dirt from which their iron was originally pulled. But while the metal forgets, the human heart holds on. The true legacy of that long, dusty road did not rust away in the fields. It lived on in the quiet, deeply ordinary lives of the men who finally walked through their own wooden gates. Far away from the rolling steppe, in a small, quiet village surrounded by wide, golden fields, an old man sits in a wooden chair by a sunlit window. It is Pavel. His hair has turned a soft, pure white, and his face is deeply lined by decades of smiling in the sun and working the familiar, forgiving earth of his home. His hands are thick and withered, the hands of a man who has known the honest, peaceful labor of the harvest. He is looking at a small, wooden shelf above the warm, stone hearth of his fireplace. Resting perfectly in the center of the shelf is a tiny, carved wooden bird. The pine is dark and incredibly smooth, polished to a brilliant shine by years of being gently rubbed between his thumb and forefinger. It is the same bird Colia gave him in the dark, trembling belly of the machine. It is a tiny, enduring monument to the kindness that saved his soul. Next to the wooden bird, framed behind a piece of clean, clear glass, is a piece of rough, brown paper. The edges are frayed, and the clumsy, thick pencil lines have faded to a soft, ghost-like gray. But you can still clearly see the little drawing of the smiling sun at the very bottom, and the single, dark smudge of soot resting on the edge of the page. It is the letter he carried across the endless miles, the letter he finally placed into the eager, waiting hands of his little sister on the day he returned. Pavel closes his eyes, leaning his head back into the warmth of the sunbeam. He remembers the exact moment he walked into his mother's kitchen. He remembers the overwhelming, physical relief of breathing in the rich, earthy aromas of her carefully ground spice mixes. The vibrant, golden scent of turmeric and the deep, warm fragrance of cumin had wrapped around him like a heavy, comforting blanket, instantly washing away the smell of diesel and coal dust. He had sat at her wooden table, surrounded by the loud, joyous laughter of his brother and the bright, happy chatter of his cousins, and he had known, with absolute certainty, that he was finally, truly safe. He survived. Colia survived. They lived long, quiet, and beautiful lives, finding their everyday heroism not in the turning of iron tracks, but in the raising of children, the tending of crops, and the gentle, enduring loyalty of their friendship. They had chosen to build a world of warmth and wood, turning their backs forever on the cold and the steel. The history of the world is not just the rust left in the empty fields. It is not just the sweeping, grand narratives printed in heavy textbooks. The true history of the world is found in these hidden stories and the secret, unseen operations of the human heart. It is the quiet resilience of a folded letter, the gentle courage of a shared blanket, and the profound, beautiful movements in the shadows that truly shape the world we know today. If you find a deep, restful comfort in uncovering these hidden truths and gently brushing away the ash of time to reveal the quiet, human operations of the past, I want to warmly invite you to join our email newsletter. As a gentle welcome to our quiet community, I would love to share a special gift with you, a free ebook titled The Shadow War, 5 Top Secret Operations That Shaped World War II. It is a collection of deeply human stories, exploring the hidden courage and the quiet, unseen paths of history, very much like the fragile, beautiful memories we are sharing together tonight. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is simply a gentle, caring way to continue our journey together, ensuring that these quiet voices, hidden in the shadows of the past, are never truly lost. Now, let us travel back to the gentle, sunlit afternoons of memory. In a deep, green valley in Bavaria, nestled beneath the shadows of the high, snow-capped mountains, the church bells are ringing. It is a slow, musical, and incredibly peaceful sound, echoing softly across the cobblestone streets and the steep, tiled roofs of the village. Sitting on a wide, wooden porch, completely shaded by the thick, heavy blooms of magnificent climbing roses, is Johannes. He is resting in a deep, woven armchair, a thick woolen blanket draped comfortably over his knees. The air smells intensely of the deep crimson petals, a sweet, rich, and intoxicating perfume that has completely erased the memory of the smoke and the exhaust. He holds a small, silver pocket watch in his hand. He clicks the silver cover open with a soft, familiar chime and listens to the rapid, impossibly precise ticking of the tiny gears inside. Tick, 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 tick. It is the same watch he wound in the terrifying dark of the Lone Sentinel, the same tiny, mechanical heartbeat that kept him tethered to the world. But now, he does not wind it out of fear. He winds it out of a deep, abiding gratitude for the time he was given. He looks out into his garden. Clara is there, kneeling in the soft, dark earth, her hands gently tending to the roots of the flowers. And running across the soft, green lawn, chasing a yellow butterfly, is a little girl in a white dress. It is not Elise. Elise has long since grown, with a beautiful family of her own. This little girl is his granddaughter, her bright, musical laughter ringing through the afternoon air just as Elise's once did. Johannes watches her run, a profound, unshakable peace settling into his chest. He remembers the suffocating, crushing weight of the iron room. He remembers the absolute, terrifying isolation of sitting on that lonely hill, waiting for the dawn. But all of that feels like a distant, faded dream now, a shadow that has been completely burned away by the radiant light of the sun and the enduring warmth of his family. He has kept his promise. He returned to the garden. He returned to the roses. The contrast between the rust on the step and the warmth of this garden is the ultimate triumph of the human spirit. The iron was built to be indestructible. It was forged in terrible heat, designed to withstand the crushing blows of the world, meant to outlast the fragile flesh and bone of the men who drove it. But the iron is decaying. The steel is flaking away, returning to the dirt, forgotten by the wind and swallowed by the silver grass. It is the fragile, breaking human heart that endured. It is the soft, vulnerable, terrified men who survived. The love they carried in their pockets, the chewed letters, the faded photographs, the carved wooden birds, proved to be infinitely stronger than the thickest armor plate. The machines are dead, but the memories of the men live on, breathing and laughing and running through the sunlit gardens of the world. Let this beautiful, comforting truth wash over you now. Think of your own heavy burdens. Think of the armor you wear during the day, the walls you build to protect yourself from the noise and the rush of the world. Just like the machines on the step, that armor is heavy, exhausting, and ultimately unnecessary in the quiet of the night. You do not need to be made of iron. You do not need to carry the weight of the world upon your shoulders. Imagine taking off that heavy armor, piece by piece. Let it fall away, leaving it behind in the dust. Feel the incredible, weightless relief of simply being yourself, soft, breathing, and completely at peace. The day is done. The struggles are over. The vast, quiet evening has arrived to offer you sanctuary. Breathe in the cool, clean air of the night. Feel the gentle, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest, a slow, beautiful clockwork that sustains you without any effort at all. With every exhalation, let go of a little more tension. Let the tightness in your shoulders melt away. Let your hands open and rest softly at your sides. You are safe. You are surrounded by the quiet, enduring grace of your own life. The stars are shining outside your window, keeping their ancient, faithful watch over the sleeping earth. The wind is whispering a gentle lullaby through the trees, a slow, shushing sound that calms the mind and soothes the soul. There is nothing left to do. There is nowhere left to go. Just allow yourself to be held in this warm, comfortable stillness. Drift away from the shores of the waking world, leaving the rust and the noise far behind. Sink deeply, softly, and completely into the comforting embrace of the dark, and let the quiet, peaceful memory of the beautiful world carry you into a deep, restful, and healing sleep. Good night.